Chapter 701. Right now, the great elder of my Tianqin clan has already gone to Coiling Dragon Mountain to negotiate with the leader of the Serpent Dragon Bandits in an attempt to save Qin. However, we don't know what the outcome will be. If the negotiations fail, then Qin will. The patriarch sighed inwardly as he reached the end of his sentence. Even the Jia kingdom did not want to provoke the Serpent Bandit group so casually. If the negotiations failed, then Qin would be forced to marry the son of the leader of the bandit group. Qin Shao suddenly stood up from his chair and said, "No, you have to bring my sister back no matter what. You can't let my sister marry that bandit leader's son. Otherwise, my sister's life of happiness will be completely ruined." Shower, sit down. You need to understand the situation before you. How can you be so reckless and do something that doesn't know your own limits? If you act recklessly, you will bring the Tianqin clan to a point of no return. The patriarch glared at Qin Shao and growled. Qin Shao was the chosen successor of the Tianqin clan, so he could not allow his son to be so reckless. "Father, are we just going to watch as my sister marries a bandit?" Qin Shao refused to accept this and retorted. The patriarch sighed. "Shao, don't be in such a hurry. The great elder has already gone to Coiling Dragon Mountain to negotiate. He should be back very soon. Who knows, there might still be a chance to salvage the situation." With that, Jianshan sensed two tremendous presences rapidly approach the patriarch of the Tianqin clan from afar. In the end, they directly entered the Tianqin clan and made their way to the hall. Two white-robed old men with white hair and ruddy complexions walked in from outside side by side. From their expressions, there was a trace of helplessness and regret, accompanied by a bit of anger. The upper echelon of the Tianqin clan all stood up from their chairs. They clasped their hands at the two great elders respectfully. "Greetings to the great elders." Jianshan sat as still as a mountain as he calmly studied the two great elders. The two great elders were extremely unfamiliar to him. They were not the same people who had escorted him to Mercenary City a few years ago. "Great elders, may I ask how the negotiations went? Are the people of the Serpent Dragon Bandits willing to release my sister?" Qin Shao stared nervously at the two Grand Supreme Elders. All his hopes were pinned on these two Grand Supreme Elders. One of the great elders shook his head. "The leader of the Serpent Dragon Bandits is determined to marry Qin to his son. Even when we offered generous conditions, they still refuse." Qin Zhao's expression darkened. He clenched his fists tightly and said through gritted teeth, "Since the Flood Dragon Bandits won't let my sister go, we must make them pay a heavy price for this." The third elder has already contacted the other experts to see if he can persuade them to deal with the Serpent Dragon Bandits. "If we have enough strength, we can put up a fight against the Serpent Dragon Bandits," the patriarch of the Tianqin clan said in a deep voice. The Serpent Dragon Bandits had kidnapped a direct descendant of the Tianqin clan to marry the son of a bandit. This was basically a slap to the face of the Tianqin clan. If the marriage really went through, the Tianqin clan would no longer be able to maintain a foothold in Wallerit. "I think the third brother will return empty-handed this time. All the experts in the nearby kingdoms know just how powerful the leader of the Serpent Dragon Bandits is. No one is willing to risk their lives to offend the leader of the Serpent Dragon Bandits." A great elder gently sighed. At this moment, another powerful presence flew over from afar and entered the hall of the Tianqin clan very quickly. The person who had come was also a white-robed old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. He was the Heaven Saint Master who had brought Jianshan to Mercenary City last time. He gently sighed as soon as he entered. His face was filled with helplessness. "I've already contacted the Heaven Saint Masters of several large clans. They're all afraid of the leader of the Serpent Dragon Bandits, so they're unwilling to work with us to deal with the Serpent Dragon Bandits. This time, my Tianqin clan is destined to lose all face." Everyone in the hall felt their hearts sink when they heard that. At this moment, Jianshan stood up from his chair and clasped his hands at the three great elders. "Elders, may I ask where the Serpent Dragon Bandits are? I'm willing to go to Coiling Dragon Mountain to save Miss Qin. I can't let her be humiliated." Everyone in the hall immediately stared at Jianshun, and the three great elders were no exception. However, two of them had never seen Jianshun before, so they could not help but become suspicious. Afterward, their eyes lit up as they carefully studied Jianshun. However, no matter how they studied him, they were unable to see through Jianshun's strength. This was because in their eyes, Jianshun was an extremely ordinary person. He was not a cultivator at all. However, they soon sensed an indescribable charm from Jianshun. It was as if Jianshun had fused with the world. He represented the world. The two great elders looked at each other and became rather stern. Although they saw Jianshun as an ordinary person, they obviously did not believe that Jianshun was that ordinary. Chapter 702. However, when the third great elder thought about the close relationship between Jianshun and the heirs of the hermit clans in Mercenary City, he immediately felt a sliver of joy. If Jianshun managed to invite the experts of the hermit clans, the pressure that the serpent dragon bandits brought to the Tianqin clan would disappear. Not only would they be able to save their young lady, Qin, and preserve the dignity of the Tianqin clan, but the clan's reputation would also skyrocket. The other two great elders had clearly heard of Jianshun's name. They were slightly surprised and asked in surprise, "Is this brother the mercenary king who obtained first place in the last mercenary tournament? The same Jianshun who killed 4 Heaven Saint Masters outside Mercenary City all by himself?" That's right. First brother, second brother. The mercenary king who obtained first place in the last mercenary tournament was this brother. His talent is outstanding. He was only an Earth Saint Master a few years ago, but he's already become an expert of the same level as us now. His future is limitless. The third great elder praised with a smile. With that, the two great elders' gazes toward Jianshun immediately changed. They had heard of this matter before. They knew that although the young man was young, his strength was no weaker than theirs. He was even stronger than them, able to kill 4 Heaven Saint Masters of the same level all by himself. "Brother Jianshun, do you really have the ability to save my sister?" Qin Shao asked. Ever since he had heard about the strength of the serpent dragon bandits from his father, he no longer believed that Jianshun and the three great elders could take on the serpent dragon bandits. Jianshun nodded sternly. "Don't worry, I will definitely save young Lady Qin. Brother Jianshun, if you invite the experts of the Dugu clan, saving Qin will obviously be a piece of cake," said the third great elder. Jianshun gently shook his head with that. He knew that the great elders of the Tianqin clan probably did not know about the flame mercenaries, or perhaps they did not know his exact strength. However, when he thought about the distance between the Tianqin clan and the flame mercenaries, he immediately understood. The flame mercenaries were indeed very famous, but it would be rather difficult for them to reach the Tianqin clan. After all, they were not as famous as Mercenary City or the 8 great kingdoms of the Tianyuan continent. There's no need to invite the people of the Dugu clan. Jianshun can save young Lady Qin from the serpent dragon bandits all by himself, Jianshun said confidently. Since brother Jianshun is so confident, Old Man and the other two will throw caution to the wind this time. "We'll go with brother Jianshun," said a great elder of the Tianqin clan. Although he did not know Jianshun's exact strength, he could not help but believe him slightly when he thought about what Jianshun had done outside Mercenary City. Perhaps the young man before him really did have the ability to save someone from the serpent dragon bandits. This time, it's a matter of reclaiming the dignity of my Tianqin clan. We have to go with great fanfare. Only then can we maintain the dignity and status of the Tianqin clan, said the patriarch of the Tianqin clan confidently. He trusted Jianshun very much. After everyone made up their minds, the Tianqin clan immediately began to move. They gathered a 1,000-person group and left the Tianqin clan majestically under the lead of 3 great elders. The group walked on the streets, attracting the attention of everyone. They all wondered what the number 1 clan of Walrant City was going to do with such fanfare. The Tianqin clan did not hide their actions this time. Very soon, the news of them heading to Coiling Dragon Mountain to deal with the serpent dragon bandits spread throughout Walrant City. For a moment, Everyone who heard the news was shocked speechless. The Serpent Dragon Bandits were a great organization that even the surrounding kingdoms feared. Although the Tianqing clan was the #1 clan in Walorant City, they were still far from being comparable to the Serpent Dragon Bandits. Now, they were actually going to deal with the Serpent Dragon Bandits. This was simply throwing an egg at a rock. Practically everyone who heard the news guessed the fate of the Tianqing clan. No one believed that the Tianqing clan truly had the strength to contend with the Serpent Dragon Bandits. The 1,000-person group of the Tianqing clan majestically left Walorant City before immediately increasing their speed towards Coiling Dragon Mountain. With our speed, we should be able to reach Coiling Dragon Mountain before Sister's wedding. However, just in case, we need to increase our speed, Qin Xiao said with a heavy voice. Afterwards, the group sped up once again. The group quickly galloped across the plains on their magical beast mounts. They left the border of the Zhuya Kingdom that night and headed south. Chapter 703. With that, Jianshun gazed at the mountain in front of him. He saw that Coiling Dragon Mountain was like a pyramid standing on the ground. It was wide at the bottom and narrow at the top. Its tip was as high as the clouds. From afar, it seemed like a huge dragon coiled up there, its head already reaching into the clouds. The surroundings of Coiling Dragon Mountain were just as the patriarch of the Tianqing family had said. The terrain was precipitous, with cliffs and precipices everywhere. Furthermore, the entire mountain was covered in thick brambles, densely covering every inch of the ground. It was practically impossible to climb up. What a thick worldly essence energy. The worldly essence energy here is actually twice as thick compared to the outside world. If I were to cultivate here, my cultivation speed would not be as fast as absorbing the energy from the demon cores. However, compared to the outside world, it would still be much faster. Jianshun stared at the top of the mountain and said, "And the closer you are to the top, the denser the energy of the world is. Coiling Dragon Mountain is a spiritual mountain where the energy of the world gathers. It's the best place to establish a sect. It's a pity that it's been taken over by a group of bandits." Yeah, Coiling Dragon Mountain is the most famous mountain in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers. There's no other spiritual mountain better than Coiling Dragon Mountain in this region. It's once caused countless organizations in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers to covet it. It's a pity that none of them have the power to take Coiling Dragon Mountain from the hands of the Serpent Dragon Bandits, said a great elder of the Tianqing clan. With that, Jianshun pondered for a moment before saying, "Since Coiling Dragon Mountain is so precious, I wonder if your Tianqing clan has ever thought of taking it over?" Of course, we've thought about it. There's no organization that wouldn't covet a spiritual mountain where the energy of the world is twice as dense as outside. However, the strength of the Serpent Dragon Bandits has stopped everyone from approaching Coiling Dragon Mountain. This time, the person who spoke was the patriarch of the Tianqing clan. His gaze towards Coiling Dragon Mountain was filled with undisguised desire. Jianshun glanced at the patriarch of the Tianqing clan and smiled. A spiritual mountain like this shouldn't be left in the hands of a group of bandits who only know how to burn, kill, and plunder. Otherwise, it will only harm even more people. Since your Tianqing clan wants to take over this mountain, I, Jianshun, will lend you a hand. I'll take over this mountain and gift it to you. It's getting late now, so let's go up the mountain. Jianshun ignored the shocked gazes of the Tianqing family head and the 3 grand elders. He urged the Class 4 magical beast mount to take the lead and head towards the only mountain path of the Coiling Dragon Mountain. Big brother, did I hear wrong? Jianshun actually wants to take the Serpent Dragon Bandit group's Coiling Dragon Mountain, and he even wants to take it and gift it to our Tianqing clan? The 2nd Grand Elder murmured as he stared at Jianshun's departing figure. The Grand Elder, who was referred to as Big Brother, was stunned by what Jianshun had said. He stared at Jianshun in both surprise and doubt as he said softly, "I wonder just what level of strength Jianshun has reached. Is he really confident that he can deal with the boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits? The boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits is so powerful that he's basically the strongest below Saint Ruler. Or perhaps Jianshun still doesn't understand the boss's strength." The 3rd Grand Elder hesitated before saying, big brother, second brother, Jianshun doesn't seem like an arrogant person. He probably has something to rely on. Let's stop discussing and follow him. We'll find out soon whether Jianshun has the ability to deal with the boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits or not. This time, Jianshun walked at the very front while the three Grand Elders followed closely behind him. Behind them was the 1,000-strong group of the Tianqin clan. The 1,000-strong group made their way up the winding path that was only 3 meters wide. They made their way to the top of the mountain. The two sides of the path were filled with dense trees and weeds. The roars of beasts would ring out from time to time in the quiet mountain forest. However, Jianshun knew extremely well that the roars of beasts did not come from real beasts. Instead, they came from people. They were using a special method to transmit information from the bottom of the mountain to the middle of the mountain, and then from the middle of the mountain all the way to the top. There was a huge manor completely constructed from marble on a wide, flat area at the top of the mountain. At this moment, the entire manor was covered in red paper. A large number of people dressed in various attires walked through the manor as they busied themselves. As the people in charge called out, they hung up large red lanterns and red wedding firecrackers all over the manor. The entire manor was filled with a heavy atmosphere of celebration. It was extremely lively. Suddenly, a disheveled young man in a wolf fur coat ran into the manor in a hurry. He directly made his way to the depths of the manor before stopping outside a hall that was heavily guarded. He knelt down on one knee and said, "Great Master, I have something important to report." "Speak." A powerful voice rang out from the hall. It was filled with supreme dignity. It was not difficult to tell from the voice that it belonged to a middle-aged man. "Great Master, a group of people has come from the bottom of the mountain. They're currently making their way to the top of the mountain. There are around 1,000 of them." The disheveled young man said politely, "If I've guessed correctly, they should be the Tianqin clan from Walrant City of the Zhuya Kingdom." The dignified voice rang out from the hall. However, there was some mockery in the voice this time. "Great Master, you've actually guessed it right away. Nothing really can be hidden from Great Master," the disheveled young man hurriedly flattered. A disdainful sneer rang out from the hall. "It's already been over 100 years since an outsider has come to my coiling dragon mountain. At a time like this, only the Tianqin clan is most likely to come to my coiling dragon mountain. I just never thought that the Tianqin clan would be so bold. Do they think that their 3 Heaven Saint Masters can threaten my coiling dragon mountain? What a joke. Pass down my orders. Get the 4 protectors of the Tianluo and Disha to lead a group of people down the mountain and defeat the people of the Tianqin clan. Chase them out of my coiling dragon mountain." "Yes, Great Master." A heavy voice immediately rang out from the hall. "Hold on, that might not be appropriate. My daughter-in-law is still a member of the Tianqin clan after all. If I were to kill a member of the Tianqin clan at a time like this, it would be rather inexcusable. Whatever, since they want to come, I'll get them to attend my son's wedding. Order the Tianluo and Disha to receive the esteemed guests." The Great Master suddenly changed his mind. "Yes, Great Master." In an extremely warmly decorated room in the manor, the second young lady of the Tianqin clan, Qin Xin, sat before a dressing table in a red wedding dress. Beside her, 2 female servants carefully helped her with her makeup. Qin Xin looked at herself in the mirror with mixed feelings. She could not help but think about what had happened a few days ago. She had gone out a few days ago, but she had unexpectedly encountered the people of the Serpent Dragon Bandits. Not only had they killed off all the guards who had escorted her, they had even taken her captive to the Coiling Dragon Mountain where the Serpent Dragon Bandits resided. She had been forced to marry the Great Master's son. Originally, Qin Xin had thought that her sudden encounter with the Serpent Dragon Bandits was purely a coincidence, but later on, she found out from the Great Master's son that it was not a coincidence at all. Instead, the Serpent Dragon Bandits had done it on purpose. The reason was that the Great Master's son had once seen her in Walrant City and had drooled over her beauty. Qin Xin did not resist being forced to marry the Great Master's son because she knew that any resistance would be pointless and useless. However, she had already made up her mind that she would never marry the Great Master's son no matter what. Once they entered the wedding hall, she would commit suicide by biting her tongue. She was as pure as jade, so she could not allow her body to be tainted in the slightest. Even before she died, she would protect her dignity. Father, thank you for raising me for all these years. I can no longer repay you in this life. I can only repay you in my next life. Please forgive me. Brother, thank you for your care for me in these years. You will always be a great person in my heart. I hope that in the next life, you will still be my big brother. 2 clear lines of tears uncontrollably flowed from Chin's eyes. Stop. Halfway up the coiling dragon mountain, the group of people from the Tianqin clan who were making their way to the peak all stopped under Jinshin's signal. Afterwards, for Heaven's Saint Masters quickly flew over from the direction of the peak as they flickered with the unique light of the energy of the world. In the end, they stopped in front of the group of people from the Tianqin clan and looked down from above. The 4 Heaven's Saint Masters all had the appearance of middle-aged men. They wore the same gray robes, and their faces were filled with arrogance. They looked down with disdain, completely looking down on the Tianqin clan. Under the great master's orders, the Tianluo Disha has specially come to invite the Tianqin clan to participate in the young master and his daughter's wedding. Everyone, please come up the mountain. The young master and his daughter's wedding will officially begin at noon today, one of the Heaven's Saint Masters coldly said to the people below. The Tianluo Disha are the 4 divine generals of the Serpent Dragon Bandits. They have been renowned for many years and are extremely powerful. I never thought that the Serpent Dragon Bandits would actually send the 4 of them, a great elder whispered into Jinshin's ear. Chapter 704. Jinshin ignored the 4 demon generals. With a wave of his hand, he led the people of the Tianqin clan toward the top of the mountain. Hold on. Suddenly, one of the 4 demon generals called out. He immediately descended from the air and stood in front of the people of the Tianqin clan. He said emotionlessly, "Everyone, outsiders have to walk if they want to climb up the mountain. Please dismount from your magical beast mounts and walk up the mountain." The upper echelon of the Tianqin clan all revealed ugly expressions. If the people of the Tianqin clan really did dismount from their magical beast mounts and walk up the mountain, they would be utterly humiliated. 4 demon generals, your serpent dragon bandits, sure have a lot of face to actually want the people of the Tianqin clan to walk up the mountain. A great elder of the Tianqin clan growled. This is the only way up the mountain. If you don't want to, then hurry up and leave the mountain. There's no need for you to participate in the wedding of your daughter and young master, sneered one of the 4 demon generals. A cold light flickered through Jinshin's eyes. Powerful killing intent radiated from him at all. He coldly stared at the 4 demon generals and sneered, "I originally didn't want to attack you here, but since you want to die, it's no longer up to me." With that, Jinshin suddenly extended his right hand and clenched his fist. Suddenly, the space around the 4 demon generals immediately froze, binding them tightly. They were unable to move at all. The 4 demon generals' faces drastically changed. They stared at Jinshin in shock. Disbelief filled their faces. With their knowledge as Heaven's Saint Masters, they obviously knew that Jinshin's ability was to control spatial force. This was an ability that only saint rulers possessed. They had never thought that the extremely ordinary-looking young man before them would actually be a saint ruler. At this moment, Jinshin extended a finger and 4 strands of sword chi shot out with lightning-like speed. They struck the 4 demon generals' foreheads and passed through their heads. Even though the 4 demon generals were Heaven's Saint Masters, they were unable to put up any resistance before Jinshin, who was truly a saint ruler. Jinshin only needed to move a finger to wipe out the 4 of them. Blood flowed from the 4 demon generals' foreheads as their eyes rapidly became hollow. They then powerlessly fell to the ground, lying there without moving at all. The upper echelon of the Tianqin clan was so shocked that they were speechless for quite a while. All of them stared at the 4 demon generals and Jinshin blankly. They were all silent. The 4 demon generals of the Serpent Dragon Bandits were Heaven's Saint Masters. Every single one of them was extremely powerful. Even on the Tian Yuan continent, they would be peak experts, yet they had all died so easily right before their eyes. They all felt disbelief at such a shocking sight. They refused to believe that it was real. A while later, the great elder of the Tianqing clan finally returned to his senses. He stared at Jianshun in shock and cried out, "That was the ability to control space. That's an ability that only saint rulers who have comprehended the mysteries of the world possess. Little brother Jianshun, is it possible that you've already—" The great elder could not help but feel his mouth go dry. He dared not say the last few words no matter what. Saint Ruler was a realm of cultivation that all heaven saint masters could only hope to reach because the mysteries of the world were just far too difficult to comprehend. It was not something that could be reached with talent, which was why there were so many heaven saint masters on the Tian Yuan continent. Basically, every small kingdom would have a few of them, while saint rulers were as rare as feathers. It would be difficult for a single saint ruler to appear in 100 heaven saint masters. With a wave of his hand, Jianshun immediately sent the corpses of the 4 demon generals into the forest. At the same time, Simei's space ring landed in Jianshun's hand with lightning-like speed. Jianshun did not even glance at the items in the space ring before putting it away. He did not explain too much about his own strength and said, "The path has been cleared. Let's continue." With that, Jianshun directly made his way to the top of the mountain. Behind him, the 3 great elders and the upper echelon of the Tianqing clan all looked at each other in shock. Their hearts churned, unable to calm down even after a long time. They said nothing, silently following behind Jianshun to the top of the mountain. I never thought that Jianshun would have already reached Saint Ruler. It's Xiao Er's honor to have such a powerful friend. Now, no one will be able to shake his position in the clan. The patriarch of the Tianqing clan murmured as he stared at Jianshun's back with mixed feelings. The rest of the journey was peaceful. Jianshun and the people of the Tianqing clan arrived at the top of the mountain without any obstructions. The deaths of the 4 demon generals of Tianluo and Disha did not cause any disturbances at all, so no one knew about their deaths even now. The peak of the coiling dragon mountain was decorated with lanterns and streamers. Not only was the villa decorated in red, but it was also filled with red cloth and red lanterns. Even the big trees outside the villa were hung with red lanterns and long firecrackers. As soon as Jianshun's group arrived at the top of the mountain, an old man who seemed like a caretaker immediately came out to receive them. He said to them indifferently, "Guests, the first master has already been waiting inside for quite some time. Please come in with me." Jianshun glanced at the mountain villa that was covered with the word "She" in lanterns. He said, "There's no need to go in. Hurry up and release the young lady of the Tianqing clan, and I can spare your lives." The old man's expression changed slightly. He glanced at the crowd and sneered. "It seems that you are not here to attend the young master's wedding. This old servant will go and pass on your excellency's message to the first master." As soon as the old man finished speaking, he turned around and left. He quickly disappeared from the villa. As soon as the caretaker vanished, a large group of people immediately surrounded them from all directions. They surrounded the people of the Tianqing clan. Every single one of them was hostile, and the leading middle-aged man was a heaven saint master. "Everyone, I hope you don't act recklessly. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite," the leading middle-aged man said to everyone with a fake smile. Jianshun indifferently glanced at the leading middle-aged man and did not pay any more attention to him. With his current level of cultivation, he really could not be bothered to compete with a heaven saint master unless they did something out of line. The old man, dressed like a butler, quickly notified the first leader. Not long after, the first leader of the Flood Dragon Bandits walked out of the villa, followed by a large group of people like the moon surrounded by stars. The famed first master of the Serpent Dragon Bandits was a middle-aged man. He seemed to be around 40 years old. He was burly and wore blue robes. He naturally possessed the dignity of someone who had been in a high position for a long time. On his rather tanned face, there was a frightening scar, which made him seem even more vicious. The first master of the Serpent Dragon Bandits stood at the entrance of the villa and coldly stared at the people of the Tianqing clan. He smiled. "In-laws, I never thought that you'd actually come all the way to attend the wedding of your daughter and my son. It really has surprised me." When I learned that you've come to Coiling Dragon Mountain, I immediately had the four protectors of Tianluo and Disha come down to receive you. If there has been any neglect, please forgive me. In-laws, please come in. Your daughter and my son's wedding is about to begin. Li Haolong, you really do boast shamelessly. My Tianqin clan is not your in-laws. A great elder of the Tianqin clan snorted coldly. A great elder of the Tianqin clan snorted coldly. Now that they had the support of Saint Ruler, he no longer feared the Serpent Dragon Bandits at all. The boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits chuckled aloud. He did not care about what the great elder of the Tianqin clan said, because he had already expected this outcome. Afterwards, he glanced past everyone and could not help but become stunned. Where are the four protectors of Tianluo and Disha? Why haven't they come up with you? Tianluo and Disha were the four protectors of the Flood Dragon Bandits, but in the outside world, they were known as the four demon generals. Not only were the four of them powerful, but they were also unafraid of killing. Their hands were covered in blood, and countless people had died at their hands. That was why they were known as the demon generals. Li Haolong, there's no need for you to find the four demon generals. They'll never appear again because the four of them have already died at the foot of the mountain. The great elder mocked. Hearing this, the leader of the Flood Dragon Bandits was shocked. He stared at the supreme elder who spoke and said in a deep voice, "What did you just say? The four protectors of Tianluo and Disha have died at the foot of the mountain?" The bandits surrounding the Tianqin clan were stunned by the great elder's words as well. They all looked at each other, unsure if what he said was true or not. This was because the four protectors of Tianluo and Disha were very famous among the bandits of the Serpent Dragon Bandits. If you don't believe me, you can send people to search the forest below the mountain. It'll be very easy for you to find their corpses. The great elder sneered as he stared at the first master. Impossible. With the strength of your Tianqin clan, it's impossible for you to kill off the four protectors silently. The first master of the Serpent Dragon Bandits did not believe him at all. Afterwards, he thought of something and suddenly looked at Jianshan. Two streaks of light immediately erupted from his eyes as he glared at Jianshan. He growled, "Sir, may I ask who you are?" Chapter 705. Jianshan remained calm under the sharp gaze of the first boss. He stared at the first boss in disdain and coldly said, "You don't need to care about who I am. I only have one goal in coming here today, and that is to bring the second young lady of the Tianqin clan home safely. First boss, you've already reached the peak of the sixth cycle of Heaven Saint Master. Cultivation has not been easy, so hurry up and release the second young lady of the Tianqin clan before I develop any killing intent towards you." "Brat, you sure are bold. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue when you talk big? Who do you think the first boss is? He's truly the strongest below Saint Ruler, and he's even killed several Heaven Saint Masters in a row in the past. He's a great figure in a radius of 10,000 kilometers. Yet a brat like you who doesn't know the immensity of the world dares to speak to our first boss like that. You really don't know how to write the word death. Arrogant brat, you must be tired of living. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak so arrogantly to our respected leader? Today, we will not let you live. Hurry up and apologize, and we will leave you with a complete corpse." He actually dares to act so arrogantly in front of our Serpent Dragon Bandits. We can't let him leave the mountain alive today, or what will happen to the dignity of our Serpent Dragon Bandits? Yes, we can't let him leave the mountain. Even if it's the Tianqin clan, we have to make them pay a heavy price. We have to let them know that our Coiling Dragon Mountain is not so easy to climb. As soon as Jianshan finished speaking, a wave of curses immediately rang out in the surroundings. The bandits in the surroundings all stared at Jianshan viciously as they hooted. What Jianshan had said before had completely infuriated these hot-tempered and unruly bandits. If it were not for the fact that the first boss was present, they probably would have charged over and ripped Jianshan to pieces long ago. Jianshan could not help but smile coldly when he heard the curses in the surroundings. He stared sharply at the first boss who stood at the entrance of the villa and said, "First boss, the hands of all the bandits here are covered in blood. Who knows how many people have died to their hands in the past? They must have done quite a lot of bullying as well. They're a malignant tumor of the human world. I have no qualms about slaughtering you, so it's best if you don't force me to act against you. God damn it, this brat is becoming more and more arrogant. First boss, please allow me to go out and teach this brat who doesn't know his limits a vicious lesson. An old man behind the first boss could not help but step forward and ask for permission. He was an elder of the Serpent Dragon Bandits and was known for his rash and violent temper. He had already reached the peak of the third cycle of Heaven Saint Master. The first boss face became very ugly after being provoked by Jinshin time and time again. He stared coldly at Jinshin and the light in his eyes flickered. He said with a deep voice, "Elder Lugu, go cut off this brat's tongue." "Yes, first boss," the elder responded excitedly. He then walked out and glared at Jinshin. Powerful battle intent radiated from his body as he yelled, "Brat, your mouth is just too arrogant. If you keep it, you'll be killed sooner or later. Let your grandpa, Lugu, deal with this for you. Leave your tongue behind." Surging Saint Force surged from the elder's right hand and quickly condensed into a half-meter-long saint weapon that resembled a hook. The elder then leapt up and shot toward Jinshin with lightning-like speed. The hook-shaped saint weapon in his hand stabbed toward Jinshin's mouth. The three great elders of the Tianqin clan all sat on their magical beasts calmly. They did not plan on interfering at all. At the same time, they did not feel any fear because they had already witnessed Jinshin's strength at the bottom of the mountain. They knew that the famed serpent dragon bandits that even the surrounding kingdoms feared were as weak as ants in Jinshin's eyes. They posed no threat to him at all. The serpent dragon bandits have been tyrannical for several hundred years, and no one has ever dared to provoke them. Today, they've poked a hornet's nest. The patriarch of the Tianqin clan hid behind Jinshin as he stared at the serpent dragon bandits with schadenfreude. He did not worry about Jinshin's safety at all. A gleam of light flashed through Jinshin's eyes as he watched the elder shoot toward him. Just as the elder's hook-shaped saint weapon approached him, he slowly raised his right hand. It seemed very slow, but it was unbelievably fast. As if he had broken through the barrier of space, he gripped the elder's hook-shaped saint weapon tightly in his hand. The old man's forward motion came to a halt. His entire body floated into the air, frozen in the same posture as before. This was not because Jinshin had restricted the old man's body with his control over space. Instead, it was because of the old man's forward momentum. The elder was slightly surprised when he saw his saint weapon being grabbed by a young man who did not even seem to be in his 20s. He snorted coldly, and saint force immediately erupted from his body, gathering into his saint weapon. Immediately, the saint weapon began to shine brightly as he attempted to heavily injure Jinshin's hand with his powerful saint force. Although Jinshin's hand was slender and slender, it was like a huge pair of pliers that tightly gripped the elder's saint weapon. No matter how the elder circulated his saint force, he was unable to break free from the restraint of Jinshin's hand, nor was he able to heavily injure Jinshin's hand. How is this possible? Is his hand immune to my saint force attacks? The elder was no longer able to maintain his previous composure. He was overwhelmed with shock. The scene before him was completely different from what he had imagined. He was unable to accept this. A gleam of light flashed through the eyes of the great boss who stood nearby. He said in a deep voice, "The person invited by the Tianqin clan really does have some ability. However, if that's all he has, he can forget about leaving Coiling Dragon Mountain alive today. Although his body's defense is very powerful, it's no different from tofu in front of a heaven-tier battle skill." Kacha! Suddenly, Jinshin exerted force with his wrist, forcefully breaking the elder's saint weapon. The saint weapon was connected to the owner's life. When the saint weapon was broken, the old man also suffered a great backlash. He felt as if his heart was suddenly smashed into pieces, causing him to immediately spit out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly paled as he was heavily injured. Elder Lugu! The sudden turn of events surprised all the members of the Serpent Dragon Bandits. Immediately, two elders leapt out from behind the great boss in an attempt to save the elder whose saint weapon had been broken. Jianchen sneered. He did not plan on letting Elder Lu Ge go just like that. His hand struck towards Elder Lu Ge's head with lightning-like speed. "Stop! Stop!" The two elders who had rushed over cried out, but Jianchen ignored them. His hand struck Elder Lu Ge's head with lightning speed, and a strand of chaotic force entered his head, wiping out his soul. Elder Lu Ge's eyes quickly lost their luster, and his body fell limply to the ground. "Kid, you're looking to die? I'll make you pay with your life for Elder Lu Ge." The two elders clearly had a good relationship with Elder Lu Ge. They stared at Jianchen with bloodshot eyes as they furiously roared. Without slowing down at all, they shot toward Jianchen at the same time. Two swords stabbed toward Jianchen's forehead and throat with powerful pulses of energy. Jianchen's gaze was cold, without any emotion. Only when the two swords arrived did he push his hands forward. When his hands came in contact with their saint weapons, the saint weapons of the two Heaven Saint Masters were reduced to dust from the tip to the hilt. In the end, Jianchen's hands struck their chests. Bang! With a heavy sound, the chests of the two Heaven Saint Masters immediately caved in. Jianchen's palm strike did not seem to give off any pulses of energy, but it was extremely powerful. With just a single strike, all the bones of the two Heaven Saint Masters had been shattered. Even their organs had been reduced to dust. The two Heaven Saint Masters of the Serpent Dragon Bandits were both blown away, slamming into the walls of the villa several dozen meters away. Two large holes appeared in the wall that was covered in red paper. The entire area fell silent. Everyone stared blankly at the scene before them. They could not be any more shocked. The three experts of the Serpent Dragon Bandits had actually been defeated in a single clash. Such strength had deeply shocked every single member of the Serpent Dragon Bandits. With that, no one dared to talk about teaching Jianchen a lesson anymore. Even the bandits surrounding the Tianqin clan began to tremble as they slowly backed away in fear. "Sir, since you have such a backing, you definitely aren't a nameless person. May I ask who you are?" The boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits was stern as he stared at Jianchen. "I'll ask you one last time. Are you going to let them go or not?" Jianchen answered with a question. Every single word he said was cold. The boss' face sank. Now, he truly believed that the four protectors had died to Jianchen's hands. However, he did not show any fear because he was extremely confident in his own strength. He immediately snorted coldly. "First you killed 5 elders of my coiling dragon mountain, and then you heavily injured 2 elders. We don't even know if they're still alive, and you're still so arrogant. Sir, it looks like you've made up your mind to become an enemy of my coiling dragon mountain. I admit that you're very powerful, but no ordinary person can act recklessly in my coiling dragon mountain." A piece of jade had already appeared in the boss' hand. He crushed it without any hesitation to inform the experts who were in long-term seclusion in the back mountains. Chapter 706. The strength that Jianchen had displayed made the boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits feel slightly threatened. Even though he believed himself to be the strongest below Saint Ruler, he had to admit that he could not break a Saint weapon like Jianchen with his bare hands. Even if he used a Heaven Tier battle skill, it would be very difficult for him to shatter a Heaven Saint Master's Saint weapon. As a result, he had taken out the greatest trump card of the Serpent Dragon Bandits without any hesitation. The 14 Heaven Saint Masters were all senior members of the Serpent Dragon Bandits. Every single one of them was powerful, with the weakest being a 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Master. They had already followed the boss for many years. However, the Serpent Dragon Bandits had been peaceful recently, which was why they had chosen to enter seclusion in the mountains. They had forgotten about breaking through. Only when the Serpent Dragon Bandits faced a great threat would the 14 of them emerge. 14 experts flew over from afar with monstrous auras. Soon, they stopped in an open space outside the villa. First, they quickly scanned the surroundings. Then they walked up to the First Master, cupped their hands, and said, "First Master." The arrival of the 14 experts immediately calmed down the Serpent Dragon Bandits. In their opinion, even though Jianchen was very powerful, he would not be able to fend off so many people. If so many experts attacked him together, it would be impossible for him to survive. The boss looked at the 14 experts with a smile. The arrival of the 14 people made him feel extremely confident. The mental pressure that Jianshun gave him had completely vanished. Boss, you've actually summoned all 14 of us today. Is our serpent dragon bandits facing a great threat? Among the 14 people, an old man who seemed to be the oldest asked. The old man was extremely old, and the wrinkles on his face had already completely covered his face. His voice was extremely hoarse and weak, giving off the feeling that he was an old man who was about to enter the earth and would not live for much longer. Elder Li's guess is correct. Today, our flood dragon bandits have indeed encountered some trouble. Not only were the 4 protectors of Tianluo and Disha killed, but an elder was also killed. 2 elders were heavily injured, and their fate is unknown. That's why we had no choice but to invite all of you out, said the great leader. A gleam of light flashed through the eyes of the old man, called Elderly. His gaze immediately landed on the people from the Tianqing clan. Aside from the people from the WRM bandits, there was only the people from the Tianqing clan. Moreover, from the way the 2 sides were facing each other, Elderly did not need to think too much to know that the people before him were enemies of the WRM bandits. Tianluo and Disha, these 4 brats aren't weak at all. I didn't expect that they would all die in your hands. Who is the one who killed Tianluo and Disha? Stand out, old man. Let me, Li Gui, have a good taste of your skills. Elder Li's eyes were filled with murderous intent. His hoarse voice was filled with icy coldness. When those words fell into the ears of the weaker people, they felt a chill run through their bodies. It was as if the surrounding temperature had dropped rapidly following the malicious spirit's words. Li Gui, you're actually a malicious spirit. You're actually still alive. A great elder of the Tianqing clan stared at Li Gui in surprise. He was not unfamiliar with Li Gui at all. 500 years ago, Li Gui was the strongest person in the WRM bandits aside from the great leader. Moreover, he was vicious and merciless when he did things, even surpassing the 4 demon generals of Tianluo and Disha. He had made a great name for himself in the region. Li Gui's gaze immediately landed on the great elder of the Tianqing clan. He sneered, I never thought that after being a hermit for so many years, there would still be people who would know of the name of the old man. It really does surprise the old man. However, the old man won't die so easily. Heaven's Saint Masters only have a lifespan of 1,000 years. Li Gui, you don't have much longer to live. Another great elder of the Tianqing clan coldly said to Li Gui. Li Gui's face sank. He snorted coldly. The old man may not have reached Saint Ruler, but he has reached the peak of the 6th cycle of Heaven's Saint Master. He's only a step away from Saint Ruler. The 3 of you are only at the 2nd cycle and the 3rd cycle, yet you dare to act so arrogantly before the old man. You really don't know what's good for you. The old man will never forgive you. The air in the surroundings began to violently pulse. Li Gui had already begun to control the energy of the world with his mind. Clearly, he was about to begin. The 3 great elders of the Tianqing clan were extremely fearful of Li Gui because they were not his opponent even if they worked together. Seeing that Li Gui was about to begin, the 3rd great elder hurriedly said, Today my Tianqing clan will follow Jianshun's lead. All of the actions of my clan will be led by Jianshun. Li Gui, if you have the ability, go through Jianshun first. Li Gui glared at Jianshun, who stood at the very front. Although he was unable to see through Jianshun's strength, he could sense an unusual presence from Jianshun with his cultivation as a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master. Kid, which organization do you belong to? Tell me your name. The malicious ghost knew that since the 3 Heaven Saint Masters of the Tianqing clan followed the young man's orders, the young man definitely had an extraordinary background or possessed the power to make the 3 Heaven Saint Masters submit to him. Li Gui had never considered the possibility of becoming a Saint Ruler because he had been stuck at the 6th cycle of Heaven Saint Master for many years. He did not even know just how difficult it was to break through to Saint Ruler. He refused to believe that the young man before him was a Saint Ruler. He's called Jianshun. Is he the Jianshin who won first place in the last mercenary tournament? Is he the mercenary king, Jianshin? There were even rumors a few days ago that he killed 4 Heaven Saint Masters outside Mercenary City all by himself. The middle-aged men behind the first boss cried out. With that, everyone knew Jianshin's identity. So he's Jianshin. No wonder he possesses such strength. The light in the first boss' eyes flickered with uncertainty. What? The mercenary king? If that's the case, you should have a heaven-tier battle skill on you. Li Gui was rather surprised by Jianshin's identity as well, but he soon sneered. Undisguised greed filled his eyes. Jianshin sneered, I do have quite a few heaven-tier battle skills on me, but I wonder if you have the ability to take them. With that, Jianshin did not look at Li Gui's expression. He stared at the first boss and said, First boss, it looks like you don't plan on handing her over. Jianshin, the serpent dragon bandits do not want to become enemies with you. It's best if you don't get involved in this matter. If you leave now, I can let bygones be bygones. As for letting her go, that's impossible. If the bride suddenly leaves right before the wedding, where will the dignity of the serpent dragon bandits go? The first boss paused for a moment before continuing, You may be very powerful, where regular Heaven Saint Masters won't be able to harm you, but there are over 20 Heaven Saint Masters on my coiling dragon mountain. At the same time, Elderly and I are both peak Heaven Saint Masters. If we all attack together, do you think you can handle us? With the first boss's words, a few more Heaven Saint Masters stepped out from behind him. They stood beside the 14th Elder. Afterward, a tremendous presence radiated from them without any restraint. The presence of over 20 Heaven Saint Masters intertwined in the air, forming an extremely great pressure that swept toward Jianshin. Although they had all witnessed Jianshin's strength, they did not believe that Jianshin could take on over 20 Heaven Saint Masters all by himself, especially when 2 of them were peak Heaven Saint Masters. The presence of over 20 Heaven Saint Masters was unable to approach Jianshin at all. Just when they were a meter away from Jianshin, they seemed to be stopped by an invisible ball of energy. Jianshin's face was sunken as he glared at the 20 Heaven Saint Masters. A powerful killing intent radiated from him as he heavily said, If that's the case, don't blame me for being merciless. As soon as Jianshin finished speaking, the space in front of him suddenly froze, trapping the 20 Heaven Saint Masters, including the first boss and Li Gui. They were unable to move at all. Sensing the change in space around them, the 20 Heaven Saint Masters of the Serpent Dragon Bandits all became extremely shocked. This is the ability to control space. Only Saint Rulers possess this ability. Why? No, this is impossible. This is completely impossible. Old Man has been stuck at the peak of Heaven Saint Master for over 400 years. He hasn't even comprehended a single bit of the mysteries of the world. So how did you get there first? Li Gui paled in fright. He was no longer able to maintain his composure. Saint Ruler, over the past several hundred years, he had always wanted to step into this supreme realm, but in the end, he hadn't even touched the edge of the mysteries of the world. Yet, an unbelievably young man had actually appeared before him, successfully stepping into the realm he had always dreamed of. This was hard to believe, and he didn't dare to accept it. Jianshin, why? You've actually reached Saint Ruler already. How is that possible? You only participated in the mercenary competition not too long ago, so you definitely can't be over 50. How can you reach Saint Ruler so quickly? No, this is impossible. This is completely impossible. The first boss paled in fright as his heart churned. When the bandits who had surrounded Jianshin heard that Jianshin had reached Saint Ruler, all of them turned pale with fright. Their faces immediately paled from fright. Without needing any orders, they all threw away their armor and scattered. They no longer dared to surround the group of people from the Tianqin clan, fleeing far away. However, there were a few fearless people who stayed in the distance and watched. It's a pity that you found out too late. I gave you a chance before, but you didn't cherish it. Don't blame me now. Today, I'll remove a tumor for the Tianyuan continent. Heavy killing intent flickered in Jinshin's eyes. With a wave of his right hand, invisible world force immediately gathered in his right hand, turning into a sharp blade that he swung toward the Heaven Saint Masters. Everyone below Saint Ruler was an ant. Even 6 cycle heaven Saint Masters could not flee from a Saint Ruler. Over 20 heaven Saint Masters were struck by the world force and directly died. Even the 6 cycle heaven Saint Masters were not spared. However, when the blade of world force landed on the first boss, a dazzling ball of golden light suddenly appeared. It actually nullified the world force that only Saint Rulers could control. At the same time, a mysterious power vaguely surged out of the golden light, breaking through Jinshin's frozen space. The surrounding space returned to normal. That's the first boss's defensive treasure, the golden silk armor. I never thought that it could actually block the attack of a Saint Ruler. Unbelievable. The great elder of the Tianqing clan could not help but sigh in amazement. A sliver of surprise flashed through Jinshin's eyes. He had also heard that the first boss possessed an extremely powerful armor made of golden silk, but he had never thought that it would be able to resist his world force and even break through his frozen space. He found this to be very unbelievable. Chapter 707. Primordial God Silk? Jinshin murmured. He was extremely puzzled. Clearly, he had no idea what the Primordial God Silk was. However, it was obvious that it was something extremely precious since the sword spirits were so excited. To Jinshin's surprise, the first boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits actually possessed such a treasure. Master, quick, quick, quick! Go take the Primordial God Silk. You can't let it end up in the hands of others. It's a supreme treasure of the world. Qing Sua's voice rang out in Jinshin's head. It was filled with urgency as well as endless joy and excitement. Jinshin recovered very quickly. Without any hesitation, he leapt off his mount and shot toward the first boss with lightning-like speed. He condensed a layer of powerful world force in his hand and sent it toward the first boss. However, what happened next shocked everyone present. As soon as Jinshin's strike approached the first boss, it was blocked by the dense, golden light around the first boss. With Jinshin's strength as a Saint Ruler, he was unable to harm the first boss at all. How is this possible? Jinshin was astounded. He stared at the golden light that blocked his hand in shock. It would have been reasonable if his attack had been blocked by the golden light earlier, because it was just a casual strike from him. Although it could kill Heaven Saint Masters, it was not particularly powerful. However, he had used his true strength in this strike, yet it had still been blocked by the Primordial God Silk. He found this very difficult to accept. When the 3 great elders of the Tianqing clan saw this scene, they were shocked speechless. The defensive power of the golden silk soft armor had far exceeded their expectations. The first boss stared at Jinshin in both shock and fear. Jinshin's identity as a Saint Ruler had indeed shocked him greatly, to the point where he could not even think about fighting back. However, when he understood that Jinshin was unable to get through his armor, he immediately became overjoyed. The pressure he felt from being a Saint Ruler rapidly vanished as a powerful battle intent rose up in him. So, the defense of the armor is actually so great. Even the attacks of a Saint Ruler can't harm me. The first boss was overjoyed. He could not help but laugh aloud. Ha 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 ha. With such a treasure protecting me. So what if you're a Saint Ruler? You still won't be able to harm me. Today, I, Li Haolong, will fight 300 rounds with a Saint Ruler as a Heaven Saint Master. Let's see who wins in the end. Li Haolong immediately became extremely confident. In the blink of an eye, he no longer treated a Saint Ruler as a threat. He was extremely arrogant. Jinshin's face suddenly sank. Back when he was a Heaven Saint Master, he could forcefully take on a 4th Heavenly Layer Saint Ruler. Yet now that he had become a Saint Ruler, he was unable to deal with a mere Heaven Saint Master. This made him feel very embarrassed. His dignity as a Saint Ruler had been challenged. Saint Ruler, I'll let you have a taste of my Heaven Tier battle skill, the first boss roared. With a roar, Saint Force surged out of his body and poured into the Saint weapon in his right hand. He began to use a Heaven Tier battle skill. As soon as the Heaven Rank battle skill was used, the wind and clouds in the world immediately changed. The pressure belonging to the Heaven-ranked battle skill mightily spread out from the world, enveloping the entire coiling dragon mountain. The huge pressure pressed down on the entire mountain peak, causing the weeds on the mountain peak to bend down. Even some magic beasts in a mountain forest prostrated themselves on the ground, shivering. With the Heaven Tier battle skill, the surroundings changed and all things submitted. Retreat, retreat quickly. The three great elders of the Tianqin clan became extremely stern. They immediately ordered the people of the clan to retreat quickly so that they would not be affected. The first boss had used the Heaven Tier battle skill for Jinshin, so Jinshin's body was completely locked onto by the Heaven Tier battle skill. The tremendous pressure gathered around him, causing the surrounding space to become viscous, as if it wanted to bind Jinshin firmly, preventing him from moving. Afterwards, a bright ball of light shot over with lightning speed. The first boss had already finished charging up his Heaven Tier battle skill. He wielded his Saint weapon and swung it at Jinshin with a thunderous force as it pulsed with energy that could make the world tremble. Trying to use a Heaven Tier battle skill before Saint Ruler? What a joke. Jinshin sneered as he stared at the first boss. Afterward, his body trembled slightly, and the space around him that had been frozen by the Heaven Tier battle skill's pressure immediately returned to normal. Afterward, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared without any warning, forming an airtight prison that trapped the first boss. The first boss' powerful attack did not approach Jinshin in the end. It only struck the barrier that trapped him. The barrier immediately trembled slightly before returning to normal. The vast energy from the first boss' Saint weapon was immediately absorbed by the barrier, like a whale sucking in water. In the blink of an eye, the barrier dissolved the power of the Heaven Tier battle skill. Not only did the first boss Heaven Tier battle skill fail to injure Jinshin at all, it did not even cause a ripple before dispersing. Everyone below Saint Ruler was an ant. Although the first boss was protected by the primordial god Silk, making it very difficult for Saint Rulers to injure him, he was unable to pose any threat to Saint Rulers with his strength as a Heaven Saint Master. Even using a Heaven Tier battle skill would not be enough. He could not even break through a barrier cast down by a Saint Ruler. This was because the difference in power was on a completely different level. It was impossible to make up for it unless he could control chaotic force, which was even more powerful than world force, like Jinshin. His face immediately changed when he saw that the Heaven Tier battle skill he had unleashed with all his strength was unable to even break through a thin barrier. The confidence he had gained from the primordial god Silk was immediately dealt a heavy blow. His mood, which had just become lively, plummeted once more. Master, the primordial god Silk is very powerful. You can only break through it with chaotic force. At this moment, Xing's voice rang out in Jinshin's head. Jinshin's eyes lit up when he heard that. Without any hesitation, he immediately took action. With a thought, the chaotic Knighten in his dantian immediately spat out strands of chaotic force, which all gathered in his right hand. As the chaotic force gathered, Jinshin's hand immediately became covered with a layer of dark light. Afterward, a destructive presence began to wreak havoc, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Chaotic force surged out of Jinshin's hand, quickly condensing into a sword that stabbed toward the first boss trapped in the barrier. The sword condensed from chaotic force broke through Jinshin's barrier and stabbed toward the first boss' forehead. When it came in contact with the golden light from the primordial god Silk, it easily pierced through the light and stabbed into the first boss' forehead, wiping out his soul. With the first boss dead, the primordial god Silk on him seemed to lose all its power. The golden light rapidly vanished, vanishing without a trace very soon. The chaotic force that had condensed in Jinshin's hand rapidly dispersed, returning to his chaotic Knighten as strands of chaotic force. Afterwards, the barrier around the first boss vanished silently as well. Jinshin did not even glance at the first boss. With a casual wave of his hand, an invisible force struck the first boss corpse, reducing his clothes to dust. It revealed a thin set of golden clothes that seemed to be woven from silk. Are these clothes the primordial god's silk? Jinshin stared at the thin set of clothes curiously as he murmured to himself. He struggled to imagine that the seemingly ordinary set of clothes would actually possess such terrifying defensive power, where it could block the attacks of Saint Rulers. It's this. Master, This is the primordial god silk. Put it away! Put it away! Xing excitedly called out in Jinshan's head. Jinshan immediately crouched down and removed the clothes from the first boss body. The clothes were not large, only a small vest. They were made of soft material and extremely tough. The clothes were as light as a feather, so he could not feel any weight at all when he held them. Congratulations to little brother Jinshan for obtaining the defensive treasure, the golden silk armor. The armor can block the attacks of saint rulers. If little brother Jinshan wears it, he'll be like a tiger that has grown wings. As soon as Jinshan obtained the primordial god silk, the great elder's praise immediately rang out from behind him. The three great elders and the patriarch of the Tianqin clan all looked at the primordial god silk with an extremely obscure desire. All of them were tempted by such a powerful treasure, but they did not dare to think about taking it for themselves because the strength that Jinshan had displayed was not something they dared to think about. Jinshan did not pay attention to the great elder's praise because his head was filled with the excited cries of Xing's sword spirit. Ha ha ha! Fantastic, fantastic. I never thought that I would be able to come across the primordial god silk that can only be found through luck. This is just far too exciting. Master, you're just too lucky to have come across such a divine item. The primordial god silk is extremely rare. Qing Suo and Xing have lived for countless years, but they've only seen a few strands. Every single strand is in the hands of extremely powerful emperors. They're primordial treasures. Xing, Qing Suo, is the primordial god silk a material for forging the twin swords? Jinshan asked in doubt. This was the first time he had heard of the primordial god silk, so he knew nothing about its uses. Master, the primordial god silk is not a material for forging the twin swords. Instead, it's a rare material for forging worldly treasures. Once the primordial god silk is forged into a worldly treasure, its uses will be endless, said Qing So. The primordial god silkworm is a spiritual object of the world. It is born from the laws of the world and is born in response to calamities. As soon as it is born, it will condense all of its vital energies under the restrictions of the laws of the world and spit out the primordial god silk before immediately turning to dust. The primordial god silkworm will not appear so easily. Since it has appeared here and left behind the primordial god silk, I think this world will face an apocalyptic calamity sooner or later. The power of this world is not enough to fend it off. It needs the power of the primordial god silk to deal with it. Jinshan's face became rather stern. Xing's sword spirit's words did not make him happy at all. Chapter 708. World-ending calamity. World-ending calamity. Is the Tian Yuan continent going to face a world-ending calamity in the near future? What is this calamity? What does it come from? It can actually cause the laws of the world to form and the primordial god silkworm's silk to assist it. Jinshan was extremely doubtful and curious. He really wanted to know just what kind of calamity would be able to obtain the assistance of the world. Is it because of the beast god continent? The beast god continent will launch a large-scale attack on the Tian Yuan continent soon. Jinshan immediately thought of the beast god continent, but he rejected this thought soon after. Although he did not have a very clear understanding of the beast god continent's strength, he did know that even if they were more powerful than the Tian Yuan continent, they would not be the cause of the calamity. The three elders of the Tianqin clan saw how Jinshan had actually stared at the armor in a daze. They thought that Jinshan was also excited over the treasure, so one of them immediately stepped forward and smiled beside Jinshan. Friend Jinshan, may I ask if you're satisfied with this armor? A treasure like this is extremely rare on the Tian Yuan continent. The sudden voice roused Jinshan from his thoughts. Jinshan quickly dismissed his thoughts and rubbed the armor woven from the primordial god silkworm. He smiled. I'm satisfied. I'm extremely satisfied. The great elder is right. This armor is indeed an extremely rare treasure. It really is very surprising that I've obtained it today. Jinshan, the boss of the Serpent Dragon Bandits, and all the Heaven Saint Masters have died. May I ask how Jinshan plans on dealing with the remaining members of the Serpent Dragon Bandits? The second great elder of the Tianqin clan asked for instructions. He was extremely courteous. Jianchen glanced around when he heard that. He saw many bandits hiding far away on the peak of the mountain. They stared in Jianchen's direction nervously, afraid that Jianshan would give the order to kill them all. They had thought about fleeing, but the terrain of the mountain was steep, so there was only one path. The people of the Tianqin clan had completely blocked off the path, so they had nowhere to run. "Don't kill me, don't kill me. Hero, I beg you, please spare me. As long as you let me go, I'm willing to be your slave for the rest of my life." Suddenly, one of the bandits knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Jianshan. His voice was filled with pleading. With someone taking the lead, the people behind him came to their senses as well. They all copied the bandit and knelt on the ground, constantly kowtowing as they begged. "Hero, please spare me. Lisaner, also thought that you would serve me for the rest of my life. Senior, don't kill me. I beg you, don't kill me. As long as Senior spares me, Senior will be my second parent. I'm willing to give all my savings to Senior." In the blink of an eye, the peak of Coiling Dragon Mountain was filled with kneeling people. Various cries for mercy rang out, filling the entire mountain. Even a few Earth Saint Masters chose to kneel and beg for mercy. However, there were a few fearless men among the bandits who remained standing. Not a single trace of fear could be seen in their eyes. Looking at the people kneeling on the ground, Jianshan frowned slightly. He called out, "All of you shut up." Although Jianshan's voice was not loud, every single word was clearly heard by every single bandit. Immediately, all of them fell silent. They all looked at Jianshan with pleading gazes. In an instant, the peak of Coiling Dragon Mountain fell into complete silence. Jianshan glanced around and said, "If you want to live, then immediately go and get the second young lady of the Tianqin clan to come out unscathed." As soon as Jianshan finished speaking, the bandits who were kneeling on the ground immediately scattered. All of them ran toward the villa as quickly as they could, trying to be the first person to get the second young lady of the Tianqin clan out unscathed. This was probably their only chance at survival. Figures flickered in the surroundings. All of the bandits ran in the same direction, and there were even many Earth Saint Masters among them. Very soon, the second miss of the Tianqin clan, who wore a red wedding dress, walked out of the manor like a moon surrounded by a myriad of stars. Her face was still filled with confusion. Clearly, she still did not understand what had happened. "Senior, we've already brought the second young lady out unscathed. Please be magnanimous and forgive us." As soon as the group of bandits brought out the confused second young lady of the Tianqin clan, they immediately began to beg Jianshan for mercy. Their eyes burned with a strong desire to live. At this moment, the second young lady discovered Jianshan's group as well. Her gaze then shifted to the dead heaven Saint Masters on the ground. When she saw the first boss, she immediately came to a realization. She understood everything. Two clear streams of tears uncontrollably rolled down the young lady's face. Even though she found it very difficult to believe, the scene before her clearly told her that she had been saved. "Sister." Qin Shao immediately leaped down from his magical beast mount and arrived in front of the second miss in a few leaps. With an excited expression, he grabbed the second miss's shoulder and said, "Second sister, big brother and father have come to save you. Now, the Flood Dragon Bandit groups, First Master, and all the experts are dead. Second sister, you are safe now. You don't need to marry that First Master's son anymore." The second miss of the Tianqin clan was beside herself with excitement. She was unable to accept the sudden turn of events. She found it hard to imagine that the Tianqin clan would actually be able to save her with just their strength. Moreover, they had even killed so many experts from the WYRM bandits. "Qiner, you've suffered in the past few days." The patriarch of the Tianqin clan also arrived before the second young lady. His voice was filled with concern. At this moment, Qin Shao suddenly arrived before Jianshan while holding the second young lady's hand. He emotionally said, "Sister, it's all thanks to Brother Jianshan's assistance this time. If it weren't for Brother Jianshan's assistance, our Tianqin clan would not have been able to fend off the Serpent Dragon bandits. You probably don't know, but Brother Jinshin's strength has already increased by leaps and bounds. He's become a saint ruler. He only needs to move a finger, and over 20 heaven saint masters of the serpent dragon bandits will be dead. When the second young lady heard the two words, saint ruler, her body violently trembled. She then stared at Jinshin in disbelief. She found it very difficult to believe that Jinshin, who was even younger than her brother, had already become a saint ruler. At that moment, Jinshin's figure had already become extremely large in the heart of the second young lady of the Tianqing clan. Silently, he had already been deeply imprinted in her head. Even though she found it very hard to believe, the second young lady still returned to her senses very quickly. She hurriedly bowed to Jinshin. "Thank you for your assistance, young Master Jinshin." Jinshin smiled and hurried up to help the second young lady up. He said, "Young Lady Qin, there's no need to be so polite. This is something that Jinshin should have done. It's not worth mentioning." The second young lady slowly stood up with Jinshin's support. Her eyes were filled with tears as she stared deeply at the handsome and masculine face right before her. Other than endless gratitude, there seemed to be something else in her eyes. Jinshin felt rather uncomfortable being stared at like that by the second young lady. He smiled and was about to say something when a clamor suddenly rang out nearby. "Let go of me, let go of me. What are you doing? Are you trying to rebel?" A young man in red robes had been tied up by a few burly men. He was carried out of the manor and thrown to the ground without any politeness. He politely said to Jinshin, "Senior, he's the son of the first master." At the same time, it was his idea to bring the second young lady of the Tianqing clan here. Jinshin's eyes turned cold when he heard that. He carefully studied the young man. The young man seemed to be in his 30s. His appearance was extremely ordinary, but there was an undisguised arrogance on his face. "You bastard, it was actually your idea to capture my sister. I, Qin Xiao, will never forgive you." Qin Xiao's eyes burned with fury. He directly charged at the young man and began to beat him up, causing the young man to cry out. "How dare you hit me? Do you know who my father is? My father is the leader of the serpent dragon bandits, the strongest below saint ruler. Do you want to die? And you people, do you want to rebel?" The young man constantly clamored while holding his head. Clearly, he did not understand the current situation. "Li Yunji, open your dog eyes and take a look. Your father is lying not far away." A burly man who had dragged the young man out cursed him without holding back. Although he was also a member of the serpent dragon bandits, he had nothing to fear now that all the peak experts were dead. "What? My father is dead?" The son of the first master, Li Yunji, was surprised. At this moment, he finally saw the 20 or so corpses nearby. He immediately became stunned. "Brother Jinshin, leave this bastard to me. Humph, he actually dares to set his sights on my sister. I will never forgive him," Qin Xiao said to Jinshin furiously. Jinshin obviously had no objections to Qin Xiao's suggestion. He agreed without any hesitation. Afterward, under the pressure of Jinshin's saint ruler, the serpent dragon bandits that had been rampant for several hundred years were forced to disband. Jinshin did not make things difficult for the remaining bandits and chased them off Coiling Dragon Mountain. The mountain was generously gifted to the Tianqing clan by Jinshin. News of the disbanding of the serpent dragon bandits spread very quickly. It caused an uproar in a radius of 10,000 kilometers, shocking countless people. At the same time, everyone gradually learned about the disbanding of the serpent dragon bandits from the Zhuya kingdom through the accounts of the bandits. They all knew that the Tianqing clan of the Zhuya kingdom had invited a saint ruler to deal with the serpent dragon bandits and take over Coiling Dragon Mountain. With that, the Tianqing clan's fame and status in the region rapidly increased. Becoming acquainted with a saint ruler was an extremely significant matter, making all the surrounding organizations envious. At the same time, the Tianqing clan became a great organization that could not be provoked in the region with a saint ruler behind them. Chapter 709. Jinshin left Coiling Dragon Mountain to the Tianqing clan before leaving. He directly flew to the neighboring Great Zhou Empire. He wanted to use the space gate in the Great Zhou Empire to reach the Qin Empire. It would save him quite a lot of time. Jianshun was not worried at all about whether the Tianqing clan could keep coiling Dragon Mountain, the only spiritual mountain in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers. He knew that once the news of a saint ruler supporting the Tianqing clan spread, no one in the surrounding 10,000 kilometers would dare to lay their hands on coiling Dragon Mountain, unless there were powerful existences who did not fear saint rulers. However, even if there were such experts, they would not fall out with a saint ruler over a mere spiritual mountain. With the Tianqing clan occupying the coiling Dragon Mountain, it could be imagined that their overall strength would rapidly increase before long. After all, the spirit chi in the coiling Dragon Mountain was 2 times that of the outside world. Cultivating on the coiling Dragon Mountain would result in twice the results with half the effort. Jianshun used spatial force to quickly move 10,000 meters in the air. The cat-sized white tiger was currently curled up into a ball, sleeping on Jianshun's shoulder. It was still digesting the medicinal effects in its body. The primordial god silk appeared in Jianshun's hand again. He murmured, "Although I've wasted 2 days on coiling Dragon Mountain, I've benefited quite a lot. I've actually obtained a supreme treasure like the primordial god silk. However, what will the apocalypse that will come with it be?" Jianshun did not feel much joy after obtaining the primordial god silk. Instead, he was filled with worry. The apocalypse in the future pressured him slightly, so he was unable to feel happy no matter what. This was because he understood that since it could be called the apocalypse and the laws of the world had given birth to the primordial god silk, the calamity would definitely be extremely large and dangerous. If it was not handled properly, the entire world would probably be destroyed. Jianshun hurried back to the great Zhou Empire with a heavy heart. At the same time, a middle-aged man stood at a junction in the depths of a mountain range with a sunken face. His face was rather pale, and there was an unconcealable haggardness on his face. He was the Gilligan king who had chased after Jianshun a few days ago in an attempt to steal the winged tiger, and had been secretly repelled by Houston in the end. God damn it, how unlucky. I never thought I'd come across a human expert so easily. Jianshun, you were lucky last time, but we have to obtain the winged tiger. Even if a human expert interferes, they won't be able to turn the situation around. The Gilligan king gnashed his teeth. As soon as he thought about what had happened a few days ago, he felt lingering fear. Even from the beginning to the end, he had no idea who the supreme expert who had secretly attacked him was, but the person's strength was unquestionable. He was unable to fight back at all, even with his strength as a second heavenly layer Saint King, forcing him to use a secret technique to escape. He had paid a heavy price for that, and his strength had dropped from the second heavenly layer to the first heavenly layer. All his years of hard work had gone to waste. At this moment, a few figures flickered in the distance. They quickly flew towards the Gilligan king, stopping before him in the blink of an eye. They just happened to be standing on the outskirts of the Cross Mountains. Neither side had taken a single step past the boundary. There were 5 people in total. They were all old men. 2 of them had white hair and ruddy complexions, while the other 3 were covered in wrinkles. They were extremely old. "King, may I ask why you called us here?" One of the old men clasped his hands at the Gilligan king 5 meters away. He was extremely respectful. The Gilligan king crossed his arms and stared at the 5 of them emotionlessly. He said, "I have indeed called the 5 of you here because I need you to do something important for me. Please speak your mind." One of the old men clasped his hands respectfully. A golden light flashed through the Gilligan king's eyes, and the energy of the world before him pulsed violently. Very soon, a portrait appeared out of nowhere. The portrait had been condensed from the energy of the world according to the memories in his head. This person is called Jianshun. He comes from a small kingdom called the Kingdom of Jessen, and beside him is a snow-white tiger cub with 2 wings. Your mission is to take the tiger cub from Jianshun and give it to me, the Gilligan king said coldly. The 5 old men studied Jianshun's portrait carefully. They had already imprinted Jianshun's appearance deeply in their minds. Then one of them said, "King, may I ask what reward we will receive after this is done?" The Gilligan king raised his hand, and 5 dazzling monster cores the size of fists appeared out of nowhere. With the appearance of these monster cores, the surrounding energy of the world seemed to become violent. There is even a layer of formless energy of the world circulating around the monster cores. Upon seeing the 5 dazzling demon cores, the 5 old men didn't hide their greed and covetous expressions. The Gilligan King sneered, "Here are 5 Class 7 monster cores. I'll give them to you as a deposit first. Once this is done, I'll give each of you 2 extra Class 7 monster cores." The light in the eyes of the 5 old men swelled as joy filled their faces. As long as they completed the mission, they would be able to obtain 3 extremely precious Class 7 monster cores. If they could successfully absorb the energy from the 3 Class 7 monster cores, their strength would definitely rise to a whole new level. Go come back quickly. I'll wait for your good news. The Gilligan King silently vanished, only leaving behind the 5 dazzling Class 7 monster cores. The 5 old men stared at the 5 Class 7 monster cores greedily before taking 1 each and leaving in a hurry. In Longevity Valley, the barefooted Uncle Shio squatted in the fields, slowly clearing the weeds. Suddenly, a gleam of light flashed through his eyes, and he said, "Shiomi, come over here." Shiomi, who was also clearing the weeds nearby, stood up and immediately arrived before Uncle Shio. He asked in doubt, "Father, what's the matter?" A blood-red arrow appeared out of nowhere in Uncle Shio's hand. He said, "5 saint rulers of our human race have colluded with the ruler of the Gilligan clan to do something detrimental to our race. Take my arrow and go to the Bloodsword sect immediately. Get the 4 protectors to personally take action and kill the 5 traitors." "Father, didn't you once swear that you wouldn't interfere with the matters of the Tianyuan continent? Why have you?" Shiomi asked in doubt. Uncle Shio gently sighed. "This matter involves far too many things. I can't just stay out of it. At the same time, this matter is related to Jinshin's safety, so I can't just stand by and do nothing. Jinshin's strength may have increased, but he's still not the opponent of the 5 of them." Shiomi immediately became stern when he heard that the matter was related to Jinshin's safety. He said, "I understand. Father, I'll go to the Bloodsword sect right now and get the 4 protectors to take action. However, who are the 5 traitors?" Chapter 710. Jinshin used the space gate in the Great Zhou Empire without any resistance and directly entered the Qin Empire. This time, the space gate in the Great Zhou Empire was clearly much more precise than before. It was directly located in a desolate mountain forest in the Qin Empire. Jinshin passed through the space gate and arrived at the Qin Wang Kingdom. He appeared in a mountain forest with an unfamiliar environment. He looked around and then immediately rose into the air. He took out a map from a space ring and began to examine it. A while later, Jinshin finally found his bearings. He stowed the map away and merged with the surrounding space, disappearing as a hazy blur. He hurried toward the imperial palace of the Qin Empire with great speed. 4 hours later, Jinshin had already crossed several thousand kilometers and arrived in the imperial capital of the Qin Empire. He continued to fly toward the imperial palace in the center of the city without slowing down at all. When Jinshin approached the imperial palace of the Qin Empire, the 4 imperial protectors sensed him. A voice rang out in Jinshin's ears. "Jinshin, imperial protector, please come to the Eastern Qin Heavenly Hall for a chat." At the same time, the 4 imperial protector in the Qin Empire opened their eyes at the same time. 3 of them shook slightly and disappeared. No one knew just how they had left. Jinshin immediately changed directions and shot toward the Eastern Qin Heavenly Hall as a blur. This time, only the 4 imperial protector, who were saint rulers, sensed him when he flew into the imperial palace. He did not alarm any of the heaven saint masters in the imperial palace. Outside the Qin Heaven Palace in the east of the Qin Huang Kingdom, a total of 500 elite guards in golden armor stood there with their chests puffed out. They were silently guarding the Qin Heaven Palace, which held a supreme position in the royal palace. At this moment, on the spacious square outside the Qin Heavenly Palace, a figure descended from the sky at an extremely fast speed, leaving behind a series of afterimages. He silently appeared outside the Qin heavenly palace without causing the slightest commotion. Even so, his arrival was still discovered by the 500 elite Imperial Guards. However, they were not surprised at all because they had just received a message from the Imperial Protector in the Qin Heavenly Hall. They knew that the 5th Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire, Jianshun, was about to arrive. The commander of the Imperial Guards immediately trotted over to Jianshun. He knelt on one knee and said with great respect, "This subordinate greets, Sir Imperial Protector." This subordinate greets, Sir Imperial Protector. Behind the Imperial Guard commander, a total of 500 Imperial Guards in golden armor knelt down on one knee in unison. Their loud and clear voices echoed throughout the entire Qinhuang Kingdom's Imperial Palace, startling everyone in the Qinhuang Kingdom. In the Imperial study in the Imperial Palace, the king of the Qin Empire slowly put down the book in his hand. He looked in the direction of the Qin Heavenly Hall in the east and muttered, "Could it be that Jianshun has returned?" Immediately after, His Majesty the King immediately placed the book on the table, got up, and walked out of the study. His personal bodyguard immediately put the book back to its original place and followed him out. The third prince, Qin Ji, also walked out of Cloud Travel Palace. He stared in the direction of the Qin Heavenly Hall in doubt and said, "The 4 esteemed Imperial Protectors rarely step out of the Qin Heavenly Hall. Even if they did, they wouldn't cause such a great disturbance with their tempers. Could it be that Brother Jianshun has returned?" The third prince's eyes immediately lit up when he thought up to there. Joy filled his eyes. "I heard that Brother Jianshun has already broken through the Heaven Saint Master level and reached the supreme realm of Saint Ruler. I wonder if that's true." In the Eastern Qin Sky Hall, Jianshun ordered the Imperial Guards to rise before striding towards the Qin Sky Hall. As soon as he approached the entrance of the Qin Sky Hall, the doors opened automatically. Jianshun smiled when he saw this. With his current abilities, he could obviously sense that this was caused by a Saint Ruler in the Qin Heavenly Hall. The Qin Heavenly Hall was extremely quiet. Jianshun directly arrived in an extremely simple room after crossing the tall threshold. There were already 4 people sitting around a round table in the center of the room. They seemed to have been waiting for quite some time already. Jianshun knew that the 4 of them were the esteemed Imperial Protectors of the Qin Empire. At the same time, his status in the Qin Empire was all thanks to the 4 of them. He immediately clasped his hands at the 4 of them and said, "Junior Jianshun greets the 4 seniors." Although Jianshun was now at the same level of strength as the 4 Imperial Protectors of the Qin Empire, he was still filled with gratitude when facing the 4 of them. This was because if it were not for the 4 of them who had bestowed him the status of Imperial Protector when he was still a Heaven Saint Master, the Kingdom of Jessin probably would not have been able to resolve the crisis so easily, nor would they have had the honor of becoming one of the 8 great nations on the continent. The 4 Imperial Protectors of the Qin Empire all stared at Jianshun. Their faces were filled with joy and relief. Although they could tell that Jianshun's talent was extraordinary, the fact that Jianshun could become a Saint Ruler in such a short amount of time had truly exceeded their expectations. At that moment, the 4 Imperial Protectors of the Qin Empire all secretly rejoiced and sighed. It was fortunate that they were wise enough to allow Jianshun to become an Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for the Qin Empire to give birth to another Saint Ruler in such a short amount of time. Jianshun, we're all family now. There's no need to be so courteous. Come and sit." One of the Imperial Protectors smiled at Jianshun. He was extremely courteous because they all knew that Jianshun still had a lot of room for growth in the future. His future accomplishments would definitely not stop here. "Jianshun, come and sit. It's been quite some time since you've become the 5th Imperial Protector of the Qin Empire, but we still haven't had a proper chat with you. Let's use this opportunity to catch up." Another Imperial Protector kindly invited Jianshun to sit. Jianshun smiled freely and did not hold back. He directly walked to the round table and sat down in the only empty seat. He began a chat with the 4 Imperial Protectors of the Qin Empire. After a while, Jianshun learned the names of the 4 Imperial Protectors of the Qin Empire. They were Qin Yunlong, Qin Xiujing, Harry, and Saxon. Qin Yunlong and Qin Xiujing were members of the imperial family of the Qin Empire. Although Harry was not a member of the imperial family, he was born and raised in the Qin Empire. As for Saxon, he was a good friend of Qin Yunlong and Qin Xiujing. He had only become an imperial protector of the Qin Empire under the invitation of his two good friends. Although the four of them came from different origins, they all had the same status in the Qin Empire. They were as close as brothers, so their relationship was extremely deep. Jinshin and the four imperial protectors of the Qin Empire had a huge age difference, but they still chatted happily. As they spoke, the four imperial protectors of the Qin Empire focused on explaining the Saint Ruler realm to Jinshin. At the same time, they passed on their cultivation experiences and comprehensions to Jinshin. They hoped to be of help to Jinshin, and they also wanted to get closer to Jinshin so that their relationship with Jinshin would become even closer. Jinshin humbly listened to the four imperial protectors explain the knowledge that would be helpful to Jinshin. Although he was extremely talented, the four imperial protectors had been saint rulers for many years after all. Their experiences and comprehensions were very helpful to Jinshin, benefiting him greatly. Jinshin and the four imperial protectors talked for 4 whole hours before gradually coming to an end. After a short moment of silence, Qin Yunlong cleared his throat and said, "Jinshin, the four of us are in such a hurry to get you back to the Qin Empire because we have something very important to discuss with you." Jinshin's heart skipped a beat when he heard that. He understood that the next topic was probably important, so he clasped his hands and said, "Please enlighten me, Senior." Chapter 711. What? The Qin Empire is actually a vassal of the Holy Emperor? Jinshin was shocked by Qin Yunlong's words. Qin Yunlong nodded solemnly and said, "That's right. Our Qin Empire is indeed a vassal of the Holy Emperor. Apart from our Qin Empire, there are 2 other powerful countries on the Tianyuan continent that are also vassal of the Holy Emperor. They're the Fire Dragon country and the Bodhi's country. These 2 countries are equally powerful and are not much weaker than our Qin Empire. This matter is a top secret on the Tianyuan continent. It's impossible for ordinary people to know about it. Even among those hermit clans, not many people know about it," Harry added. "Then what is the problem that your Qin Empire is facing? Is it from the Holy Emperor?" Jinshin asked curiously. "That's right." Qin Yunlong nodded solemnly and said, "The Holy Emperor is about to change." Change? Jinshin was a little confused. Soon after, a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. Qin Yunlong looked at Jinshin, who was in deep thought, and said, "Jinshin, the Holy Emperor is not ruled by the royal family like you think. Instead, it is jointly ruled by 3 powerful clans. The Holy Emperor is chosen from these 3 clans in turn. It can be said that the person who controls the lifeline of the Holy Emperor is not the Emperor, but the 3 clans. These 3 clans all possess the strength of ancient clans. They have always kept each other in check. The root of the problem this time is that the balance between the 3 clans and the Holy Emperor has been broken. The 3 clans have lost their balance. One of them, the Tsar clan, is now stronger than the other 2 clans. They have already begun to move. They want to move against the other 2 clans, the Kar clan and the Kara clan, and rule the Holy Emperor alone. As for our Qin Empire, we are dependent on the Kara clan, one of the 3 clans. As a dependent country of the 3 clans, the competition between them has already involved our Qin Empire and the other 2 powerful countries. We can't stay out of it alone. Therefore, in the near future, our Qin Empire may be in trouble." Hearing this, Jinshin couldn't help but recall the moment when he participated in the mercenary tournament a few years ago. He still clearly remembered that his opponent was from the Holy Emperor, a powerful opponent called Tsar. Before the start of the last match, he and Tsar had a conversation on the arena. At that time, Tsar tempted Jinshin by giving up the first place and wanted Jinshin to agree to one of his conditions. At that time, Jinshin understood that Tsar wanted him and Ming Dong to be on the same side as them, so he refused without hesitation. From Tsar's words, he could tell that this was a vortex of power struggle. However, Jinshin didn't think that after a few years, he would still be involved. It was just that his status was slightly different from before. The Holy Emperor's kingdom is my only chance to break through to the seventh step. It's a place that I, Jianshun, must go. Now I, Jianshun, have to fight for the three clans. Is this all fate's arrangement? Jianshun thought. Jianshun, the four of us originally didn't want you to get involved in this matter, but the situation right now is so severe that we can't stay. So, the Qin Empire needs your help. Qin Xiu stared at Jianshun with a serious expression. Jianshun fell silent. After a while, he said, Seniors, I, Jianshun, am the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. I have to consider the safety and future of my empire. Furthermore, I still have some matters to take care of in the Holy Emperor's kingdom. This time, why don't I use my status as the imperial protector of the Qin Empire to take care of these matters? Perhaps I'll encounter fewer obstacles. The four imperial protectors' faces lit up with joy. Qin Xiu smiled and said, Jianshun, with your participation, the Qin Empire's strength will increase by a lot. All right, I saw a saint ruler and a seven-step magical beast by your side last time. I wonder if you'll be able to obtain their assistance. As for newbies and Jitatai, I have no right to interfere with their actions. I'll ask them when I return, Jianshun replied. That's great. After the important matters were discussed, Jianshun chatted with the four imperial protector of the Qin Empire for a while. He gained a better understanding of the Holy Emperor's kingdom, and he also asked about the seven-step Radiant Saint Masters. However, the answers he received from the four were the same as what Bai Hai had told him. He didn't learn anything. By the time Jianshun walked out of the Qin Heavenly Palace, it was already evening. 1,000 meters in front of the palace, a group of people had been waiting for a long time. The person at the very front was the king of the Qin Empire. Behind him were a few members of the imperial family and princesses, as well as a group of Heaven's Saint Masters. Greetings were naturally unavoidable when the two sides met. Jianshun exchanged some pleasantries with the king and the third prince of the Qin Empire before being politely invited to a banquet. Perhaps because Jianshun was now a saint ruler, the king treated Jianshun with a level of respect that had never appeared before. While Jianshun was drinking and chatting with the nobles of the Qin Empire, 5 old men gathered together in an unknown inn in a small kingdom several 100,000 kilometers away. However, outsiders could only see their lips constantly moving, unable to hear anything. It was as if they were speaking in a language that outsiders could not understand. I've already investigated. This Jianshun is a saint ruler, and he's quite strong. He's even established a mercenary group, which seems to be called the Flame Mercenaries or something. Other than him, there are 2 other saint rulers in the mercenary group, said an old man. Then do you know if Jianshun has a snow-white, winged cub by his side? Asked an old man beside him. The old man in charge of investigating nodded. I obviously have to investigate such an important matter, but the results haven't disappointed us. Jianshun does indeed carry a cub like this, and the cub should be what the ruler wants. Since Jianshun is the captain of the Flame Mercenaries, he must be in the group. Let's go directly to the Flame Mercenaries and hand it to the ruler as soon as possible. It'll be easier for us to obtain the 2-class 7 monster cores. All right, let's go directly to the Flame Mercenaries. The next morning, the core members of the Flame Mercenaries gathered in the dining hall for a meal. As a Class 7 magical beast, newbies had been deeply attracted by the delicacies of the human world ever since he had stepped into it. As a result, he would never miss a single meal, and he would eat 10 times, or even several dozen times, more than a normal person. As a result, he was no exception. He was currently wolfing down his breakfast with Ming Dong, Yu, Balian, and so on. There was a tall stack of plates before him. This roasted meat tastes pretty good. The great newbies have never eaten anything so delicious before. Oh, and this pastry as well. Give me a few portions for each of the 3 meals. It's best if there's more. Newbie spoke with a muffled voice as he wolfed down the roasted meat on his plate. Great newbies, don't worry. As long as you remain in our Flame Mercenaries, I guarantee that I'll prepare a large amount of delicious delicacies for you every day. Bai Lian smiled sweetly at Newbies. Newbies raised his head and glanced at Bai Lian. He scolded jokingly. Little girl, how could I, the great Newbies, not know what you're thinking? You're looking down on me too much if you want to bribe me with these delicacies that can be bought with purple coins. I, the great newbies, am a mighty class 7 magical beast. Since when have I become so worthless? The group chatted as they ate. After spending some time together, they all knew of Newbie's temper, so they were very respectful when they spoke. They didn't cross Newbie's bottom line, nor did they provoke Newbie's temper. Moreover, although Newbie's was a class 7 magical beast that had lived for hundreds or even thousands of years, his temperament was still that of a young man. As a result, the group of people who were around the same age got along quite well. Although they weren't very close, they could at least casually exchange a few words with each other. At this moment, a guard ran in from outside and reported, "Report, there are 2 people outside. They claim to be from the Tianmu clan and want to see the captain." "What? The Tianmu clan?" Newbies asked in surprise. The people in the dining hall might not know the origins of the Tianmu clan, but newbies who had participated in the operation to protect the tungsten alloy mine knew very well. Great newbies, were the origins of the Tianmu clan. Bailon blinked her eyes and curiously stared at the shocked newbies. Their origins aren't small. They're people from an ancient clan, and they seem to have a bit of a relationship with Jinshin. You should all go and receive them together, said newbies. Soon after, the core members of the Flame Mercenaries no longer cared about eating breakfast. They all left the dining hall and walked out. When they arrived at the entrance of the Imperial Palace, they saw a beautiful woman in her 20s who was dressed extremely flirtatiously standing outside. It was Tianmu Ling. Beside Tianmu Ling was an old woman. Her hair was white, and her eyes were deep. She held a dragon-headed walking stick in her hand. She seemed just like an ordinary old woman. Chapter 712. Within the discussion hall of the Flame Mercenaries, Tianmu Ling and the old woman were politely invited to sit down, while Bai Lian and Yu Yu passionately entertained the 2 esteemed guests. Tianmu Ling gracefully took a sip of tea. She glanced at Yu Yu and Bai Lian, who were even prettier than her. She said softly, "I'm Tianmu Ling. Who are you 2 little sisters? What's your relationship with little brother Jinshin?" "Hello, Sister Tianmu Ling. I'm Bai Lian. Jinshin is my brother, and this is Sister Yu Yu. She's my brother's fiancée." Bai Lian smiled faintly. "Fiancée?" Tianmu Ling murmured in a low voice. She stared at Yu Yu with a bit of surprise. She smiled and said, "I never thought that the always cold little brother Jianshan would actually have a fiancé. This is really a surprise for this little girl." However, little sister Yu Yu's temperament is refined and elegant, and she has a devastatingly beautiful appearance. Only a girl with such beauty can match little brother Jianshan. Yu Yu's pretty face blushed as she said with a smile, "Young Miss Tianmu Ling is too serious. Compared to young Miss Tianmu Ling, Yu Yu is far inferior." Tianmu Ling giggled. "Right. Why don't I see little brother Jianshan? I've come here today to represent my Tianmu clan to look for little brother Jianshan." "Miss Tianmu Ling, I'm really sorry. My brother has gone to the Qin Empire for some matters 2 days ago. We don't know when he'll be back," Bai Lian said apologetically. A sliver of disappointment appeared on Tianmu Ling's face. She sighed softly and said, "It looks like I've come at the wrong time. Miss Tianmu Ling, why don't you and this senior stay here for 2 days? Jinshin should be back very soon," Yu Yu suggested. Tianmu Ling stretched her body before looking at the silent old woman beside her. She said, "Granny Wong, why don't we stay here for 2 days and wait for Jinshin to return?" The old woman looked at Tianmu Ling lovingly and smiled. "Linger can make the decision. Granny will listen to you." With that, a gleam of light suddenly flashed through the old woman's eyes. She slowly raised her head and looked into the distance. At that moment, her eyes suddenly shone with a strange light, as if she could see through the obstructions of the hall and see the situation outside. Soon afterwards, a tremendous pressure suddenly appeared in the surroundings, enveloping the entire palace. Some of the weaker people in the palace immediately felt as if they were being crushed by boulders. Not only did they become extremely heavy, but they also found it difficult to breathe. Bai Lian and Yu Yu were also affected in the discussion hall. Their faces suddenly paled, and their legs became weak. They almost lost their footing and fell to the ground. The old woman, sitting on the chair, snorted coldly and the dragon head, walking stick in her hand, lightly tapped the ground. Immediately, the huge pressure that filled the hall dissipated into nothingness. "Is the captain of the flame mercenaries, Jianshun, here? Come out quickly." An old voice reverberated through the sky like a thunderclap. It was deafening and resounded through the entire city. Everyone in the city could hear it. 5 figures had appeared in the sky above the flame mercenaries' palace at some unknown time. They stood there like gods of war. Who dares to be so presumptuous outside? A cold snort rang out from the royal palace of the flame mercenaries. Afterwards, 3 powerful presences appeared from the royal palace at the same time. Behi, Jeddah, and Nubes flew into the sky from the royal palace at the same time, facing off against the 5 people from 100 meters away. They blocked the presences of the 5 people. I never thought that the flame mercenaries would actually have 3 saint rulers. What a surprise! One of the 5 old men stared at Behi's group in disdain. Behi sternly studied the 5 people. He could sense their strength. 3 of them were at the 5th heavenly layer, and 2 were at the 6th heavenly layer. They were so powerful that the 3 of them could not fend them off. "Who are you? Why are you looking for my great-grandson?" Behi asked with a heavy voice. His complexion was very ugly. The 5 old men glanced at Behi's group, but they did not find Jianshun. As a result, one of them said rather impatiently, "Call Jianshun out. We need him for something." "My great-grandson isn't here. If you want to find him, it'll be a wasted trip," Behi growled. The 5 people had come with ill intentions, so he knew that they were enemies. The 5 old men's faces sank slightly. One of them said with a hoarse voice, "What? He's not here? Then where did he go? Tell us quickly." The person spoke in a tone that allowed no resistance, as if he was directly giving orders to Behi's group. Nubes lost his cool, but as a beast of antiquity, the pride in his bones would not allow anyone to speak to him like that. Even if there were 6th heavenly layer saint rulers among them, he did not fear when his dignity was severely challenged. "Old bastard, who do you think you are? Watch your tone, or don't blame the great Nubes for being rude." Nubes coldly stared at the old man. The old man was slightly stunned. He had never thought that Nubes would dare to speak to him like that, as a mere 3rd heavenly layer saint ruler. This was something that he had never encountered in all his years of life. However, the old man's face sank soon after. He stared at Nubes in shock, and powerful killing intent radiated from him. He coldly said, "You're looking to die." With that, the old man arrived before Nubes with extreme speed. He formed a claw with his right hand and reached toward Nubes' neck with lightning-like speed. The old man was a 5th heavenly layer saint ruler, so Nubes did not fear him at all. Opening his mouth, he immediately spat out a mouthful of dense, poisonous gas, which immediately enveloped the old man. At the same time, Nubes' right hand received the old man's hand fearlessly with great power. Bang! The 2 fists collided, emitting a muffled sound like muffled thunder. Both of their bodies stood there as steady as Mount Tai, and neither of them retreated in the slightest. However, the old man's face suddenly changed. He quickly retreated, escaping from the poisonous gas. He stared at Nubes in shock and cried out, "What is this poison? It's so powerful that it can even injure me." Soon afterward, the old man seemed to think of something and became surprised. Why? You're not a human. You're a magical beast." Behind him, an old man at the 6th heavenly layer gently sniffed the air that was slightly poisonous. After a moment of thought, he slowly said, "This is the poison of an ancient beast, a golden-striped silver snake." He's actually a golden-striped silver snake. I heard that golden-striped silver snakes are extremely powerful and can easily defeat stronger opponents. Looks like it really is true. You can actually block an attack from a 5th heavenly layer saint ruler as a 3rd heavenly layer saint ruler. Not bad at all. I wonder if you can stop 2 6th heavenly layer saint rulers working together, the other old man sneered. Chapter 7:13. A 6th heavenly layer saint ruler old man said to another 6th heavenly layer saint ruler, "Old bastard Situ, golden-striped silver snakes possess extraordinary battle prowess, and their venom is renowned across the continent. They're not easy to deal with. In my opinion, we should work together and try to kill this golden-striped silver snake in the shortest amount of time possible to prevent him from escaping. The old man, called Situ, stared at Newbies as if he had discovered a huge treasure trove. Undisguised greed filled his eyes as he strangely laughed. The entire body of every ancient beast is a treasure. Since we've come across one today, we can't miss this opportunity. Old bastard ma tongue, let's do as you say. We'll work together and kill this golden-striped silver snake in the shortest amount of time possible, using the most effortless method possible. Then we'll take his monster core and body. Old bastard ma tongue rubbed his hands together. He was about to obtain another Class 7 monster core, which filled him with uncontainable excitement. After all, Saint Force surged from his right hand and quickly condensed into a 2-meter-long scythe. He turned to the other 3/5 heavenly layer Saint Rulers and said, "They're all Jinshin's companions, and one of them seems to be Jinshin Senior, so we can't let any of them go. I'll leave the other 2 to you. If we can capture them and use them to threaten Jinshin, we'll be able to complete our mission much more easily. Don't worry, brother. Leave the other 2 to us," sneered a 5th heavenly layer Saint Ruler old man among the 3 remaining people. Bai Hai and the other 2 heard every single word of their conversation, causing their expressions to become extremely solemn. With their strength, it was impossible for them to be a match for the 5 people in front of them. Newbies was also extremely stern. Although the golden-striped silver snake possessed extraordinary battle prowess, he could only deal with 1/6 heavenly layer Saint Ruler, at most as a 3rd heavenly layer Saint Ruler. If 2/6 heavenly layer Saint Rulers attacked him at the same time, it would be extremely difficult for him to deal with them. He was not their opponent at all. You dare to make an enemy out of the Flame Mercenaries? Don't you know that the Flame Mercenaries have the backing of the Great Elder of Mercenary City? Jitatai shouted in a deep voice, attempting to use the name of the Great Elder of Mercenary City to intimidate the 5 people. However, the 5 people knew nothing about the Flame Mercenaries, so they did not believe Jitai's words at all. Situgue looked at Jitatai in disdain and said, "What kind of status do you think the Grand Elder of Mercenary City has? Why would he have anything to do with a tiny mercenary group like yours? Do you really think we're as gullible as 3-year-olds? Old bastard ma tongue, let's go together. Let's get the monster core of the golden-striped silver snake first." With that, Situgue took out his saint weapon and charged toward Newbies. Ma Tongue, who was also a 6th heavenly layer Saint Ruler, followed behind him. They worked together to deal with Newbies. The other 3/5 heavenly layer Saint Rulers did not fall behind either. They charged toward Jitatai and Bai Hai at the same time. 2 of them dealt with Bai Hai, who was at the same level as them, while the last one dealt with Jitatai, who was only at the 3rd heavenly layer. The battle between the 8 Saint Rulers erupted in the air above the Imperial Palace of the Flame Mercenaries. As soon as they clashed, a thunderous boom rang through the surroundings. Powerful ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings, spreading in all directions with a devastating force. The Imperial Palace and the entire city below were affected by the shockwaves. Countless buildings collapsed as dense cracks appeared on the streets. The countless merchants and mercenaries in the city felt like the end of the world had arrived. They all fled into the distance while covering their heads to avoid being affected by the shockwaves. However, there were still many people who were injured by the collapsing buildings in the surroundings. The entire city was thrown into chaos in a single moment. In the sky, the disparity in strength between the 2 sides was too great. After a few rounds, the weakest Jitatai was injured by his opponent. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell from the sky, losing the ability to continue fighting. Bai Hai was completely suppressed by the 2 opponents who were at the same level as him. He was at a disadvantage. All he could do was block and not fight back. Newbies was the same. He was firmly suppressed by the 2/6 heavenly layer Saint Rulers. Hiss! Suddenly, a soul-rending cry rang out from Newbies' mouth. Newbies quickly transformed into a magical beast. A 10,000-meter-long golden snake hung in air as he engaged in an intense battle with the 2/6 heavenly layer Saint Rulers. Newbie's battle prowess was even greater in his magical beast form. Using the advantage of his ancient beast form and the famed poison of the Tian Yuan continent, he was able to fight the 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers to a stalemate for now. However, the 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers struck out as hard as they could, without holding back, suppressing Newbies once again. All he could do was block. He could not fight back at all. Bahai was outnumbered in the end. He was injured by his opponents before long. He vomited blood as he fell from the sky, slamming into the ground heavily and creating 2 craters. Newbies vomited blood as he was knocked far away by the 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers. Old Situ hovered in the air as he coldly stared at the 3 injured by Hai. He sneered, "Capture them. I refuse to believe that Jianshan won't come back with them as hostages. Old Ma Tong, the 2 of us will go and take the monster core of the golden-striped silver snake." Immediately, 2 fifth heavenly layer saint rulers flew toward Bai Hai and Jitatai, while the 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers, Ma Tong and Situ Yun, continued toward Newbies. How can I let you act so arrogantly with this old woman here? At this moment, an old voice boomed in the surroundings. A presence even greater than the 5/6 heavenly layer saint rulers suddenly appeared. An old woman with a dragon-headed staff silently appeared in the air, blocking the path of the 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers. The expressions of the 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers drastically changed when they sensed the tremendous presence from the old woman. One of them immediately growled, "Who are you?" The old woman stared sharply at Old Devil Situ and Old Devil Matang. A disdainful sneer appeared at the corner of her mouth. She did not answer them. Instead, she gently tapped the dragon-head walking stick in her hand. An invisible force of the world immediately shot out from the dragon-head walking stick and headed straight for the 2 people. The 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers knew how powerful the old woman was, so they did not dare to be careless. They also swung their saint weapons forward with the invisible force of the world. The invisible forces of the world collided in the air, but there was no sound at all. Similarly, there was no violent shockwave of energy that spread out. One could only see the space there shake violently and tremble. Soon after, the space was torn apart, revealing a head-sized black hole. Starlight flickered in the black hole. The old woman stood there without moving, while the 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers' faces became ashen. They grunted with great difficulty as they quickly retreated. However, before they could control their bodies, the old woman who was in front of them appeared behind them without them noticing. The dragon-headed staff in her hand merged with space and swung out in a seemingly light manner, hitting the backs of the 2 old men like lightning. Spurt! The 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers became extremely fragile at that moment. They vomited blood as their faces paled in a single moment. Afterward, their gazes toward the old woman became filled with shock. Chapter 714. Old Devil Ma Tong's face also became incomparably solemn. He was no longer as calm as before. He exclaimed, "This old woman is too strong. Even if the 2 of us work together, we are still no match for her. Quickly retreat." Old Devil Ma Tong didn't have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth and immediately retreated. The sudden change of events greatly surprised the 3 old men at the 5th heavenly layer. The 2 old men who charged toward Bai Hai and Jitatai also stopped. The 3 of them immediately gathered together in the air. If the old woman wanted to attack them, they would be able to block 1 or 2 moves at the very least, even if they were not her opponent. The 2/6 heavenly layer saint rulers quickly retreated. Their bodies fused with the surrounding space as they used spatial force to retreat to the back with lightning-like speed. They gathered with their 3 companions at the 5th heavenly layer. They were all stern as they cautiously stared at the old woman with the dragon-headed staff. "Who are you? What's your relationship with the flame mercenaries?" Situ Tang's face was rather pale. He stared at the old woman closely as he asked with a deep voice. He wanted to know her identity. The old woman was stooped, but her eyes shone brightly. She said, "The 5 of you don't have the right to ask about my origins. As for my relationship with the flame mercenaries, that has nothing to do with you. If the 5 of you know what's good for you, leave immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Old Devil Situ and Old Devil Ma Tung's expressions were somewhat ugly. They looked at each other, and Old Devil Situ said, "Although the other party is very strong, the 5 of us are not weak either. If the 5 of us work together, I don't believe that we can't deal with that old woman." That's right. If we want to complete the mission easily, we need to repel that old woman and then take control of this place to threaten Jianshan. As long as we have the flame mercenaries as a bargaining chip, I refuse to believe that Jianshan won't obediently hand over what we want, Ma Tong sneered. All right, I agree with that suggestion. Let's work together and fight to the death. The 5 of them quickly came to a consensus and charged toward the old woman. They didn't hold back in the slightest as they fought the old woman with all their might. Jitatai and Bai Hai stood up with pale faces. They looked at the sky at the same time and let out a sigh of relief inside. Although the 2 of them had no idea when the old woman had arrived, they were familiar with her. They knew that she was a peak expert at the 8th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler, and that she had the terrifying backing of an ancient clan. Newbies transformed back into his human form and hovered in the air, watching the battle from afar. He felt very fortunate. Fortunately, they're experts from the Tianmu clan. Otherwise, who knows what kind of consequences we would face today. The old woman had already engaged in an intense battle with the 5 powerful saint rulers in the air. Both sides had gone from 1,000 meters high to over 10,000 meters high. The battle caused the ground to crumble and the sun to dim. Pitch-black spatial cracks would appear from time to time in the azure sky. The old woman blocked 3 saint rulers at the 5th heavenly layer and 2 at the 6th heavenly layer. Not only was she at ease, but she also possessed the upper hand, firmly suppressing the 5 saint rulers. The battle did not last for very long. In around 10 minutes, the 5 saint rulers had all been injured by the old woman. They all vomited blood and fell from the sky, heavily injured. The 5 of them were shocked. The old woman's strength had completely exceeded their expectations. They originally believed that they could defeat her if they worked together, but they never thought that not only would they fail to achieve victory, they would not even be able to touch a hair on the old woman's head. Instead, they were all heavily injured. That old woman must be at the peak of the 8th heavenly layer or even the 9th heavenly layer. God damn it. Why is there such an expert in the flame mercenaries? An old man at the 5th heavenly layer could not help but curse. Old Fogey Situ managed to control his falling body in midair. He glared at the old woman in the sky and said through gritted teeth, "Let's go." As soon as he finished speaking, old Fogey Situ immediately fled into the distance. Behind him, Ma Tong and the 3 other old men all stabilized their falling bodies. They followed behind Old Man Situ with their heavily injured bodies, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. The old woman slowly descended from the sky. As soon as her feet touched the ground, the seductively dressed Tianmu Ling arrived beside her. She asked in concern, "Granny Wang, are you all right?" The cold expression on the old woman's face instantly disappeared. She looked at Tianmu Ling with a gentle gaze and said with a benevolent smile, "Silly girl, how can Granny Wang have any problems dealing with them? It's not like you don't know Granny Wang's strength." Ling was just worried about Granny. Tianmu Ling sweetly smiled and hugged the old woman's arm affectionately. The old woman could not help but chuckle when she saw how Tianmu Ling was behaving. This granddaughter of hers was the apple of her eye. She loved her dearly. "Thank you for your assistance, Senior." Bai Hai and Jitatai walked over from afar, their steps a little shaky. At the same time, they cupped their fists and thanked the old woman. Both of them knew that if it wasn't for the old woman's help today, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Not to mention the fact that both of them would have been captured by the enemy, even by Lien, and the others would have been seriously threatened. The old woman calmly glanced past Bai Hai and Jitatai. She said, "I never thought that there would be people who would come looking for trouble with the flame mercenaries. Looks like they don't know about the relationship between Jianshan and the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. I really wonder what kind of trouble this kid has caused outside for so many experts to come looking for him. All right, go heal up. I'll watch over here, so you don't need to worry about your safety." Bai Hai and Jita Tai expressed their thanks once more and went to tend to their injuries. Afterwards, Bai Lian and Yu Yu ran out of the discussion hall and thanked the old woman profusely. "There's no need for the two of you to be so courteous. I've come this time to discuss something with Jianshan. I've saved you this time, so Jianshan owes me a favor. He has to return this favor." The old woman smiled meaningfully. Chapter 715. The matter of the flame mercenaries encountering a powerful enemy had caused quite an uproar. It had spread to a radius of 10,000 kilometers in an extremely short amount of time. As long as one was within that radius, one could basically hear countless people discussing this matter at all times. Even a few hermit clans had learned about what had happened to the flame mercenaries. They were all extremely curious, unable to understand just who was so bold as to provoke the flame mercenaries that had the support of the Grand Elder of Mercenary City. The flame mercenaries were currently in a mess. Although the 5 invading saint rulers had been repelled, the 5 of them had caused irreparable losses to the mercenaries. Not only had the entire city and imperial palace been heavily damaged, almost reduced to ruins, but there were also countless people who had suffered varying degrees of injuries. Some of the weaker people had even lost their lives due to the unexpected events. Although the matter had calmed down, there was still a lot of work to be done. At this time, Sima Yu Yu and Bai Lian displayed outstanding leadership skills. They immediately gathered the upper echelons of the Blazing Flame mercenary group to deal with the aftermath. One order after another came out of their mouths. At the same time, in a dense forest thousands of kilometers away from the Inferno mercenaries, there was a bonfire slowly burning within a pitch-black cave. The bright light of the fire was like a naughty child happily dancing, causing the pitch-black cave to flicker between light and darkness. With the weak light from the fire, one could clearly see 5 pale-faced old men seated around the walls of the cave. They did not move at all, as if they were meditating. The 5 old men were the 5 old men who had escaped from the old woman. After the 5 of them consumed the radiant divine pellets, it took them half a day to fully recover from their injuries. Then, the 5 of them slowly opened their eyes at the same time. They took a deep breath and slowly exhaled a cloud of turbid gas from their bodies. God damn it, just when we were about to succeed, I never thought that there would be such a powerful old woman hiding in the flame mercenaries, making all our efforts go to waste, an old man at the 5th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler said through gritted teeth as he cracked his knuckles. According to their plan, as long as they controlled the flame mercenaries and the people close to Jianshan, they would be able to use them to threaten Jianshan and make him hand over what they wanted. That way, they would be able to complete the mission given to them by the Gilligan King extremely easily and obtain the 2 remaining Class 7 monster cores. However, none of them had thought that something like this would happen in the end. There was actually an old woman in the flame mercenaries that the 5 of them were unable to deal with. The strength of the flame mercenaries has indeed exceeded our expectations, since they have that old woman who's at least in 8th heavenly layer Saint Ruler. There's no way our original plan would work. It looks like we need to reconsider this matter, Sita Gue said after some thought. This is our first time here, so we don't understand the situation here at all. We also don't know anything about Jianshan's identity. I think we should go out and ask around about Jianshan so that we can gain an understanding of him. That way, our next step will be easier, Ma Teng suggested. That's right. I think we should go out and ask around about Jianshan before thinking of a way to deal with him and make him hand over what we want, said an old man at the 5th heavenly layer of Saint Ruler. Fair enough. Let's not waste any time. Let's set off right now and go gather information about Jianshan. We'll meet up in this cave in a day, said the old man. Afterward, the 5 experts all left the cave. They each chose a direction and flew off, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Time passed quickly. A day later, the 5 old men returned to the cave at the same time. May I ask if you've obtained any useful information? The old man seemed to be the backbone of the group, so he asked first. I've obtained some useful information. The captain of the flame mercenaries, Jianshan, has another identity, which is the fourth young master of Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten. He's also the new imperial protector of the Qin Empire. And Jianshun is also a prodigy. He used less than 50 years to reach Saint Ruler. His talent is truly unprecedented. I think he's probably hiding some sort of treasure on him that can greatly increase his cultivation speed. Don't tell me Jianshun has obtained the legacy of some supreme expert. Otherwise, it's very difficult to explain how he can cultivate so quickly. In a few words, the few of them shared the information they had gathered. The topic gradually shifted from the initial question of identity to the treasures. However, when the topic of treasures was brought up, the eyes of the five began to flicker, filled with greed. The old man gently coughed and said, "Our top priority is to find Jianshun. Let's not talk about the treasure for now. As long as we find Jianshun, everything will be easy to solve. Not only will we complete the mission perfectly, but everything on him will be ours as well." Yes, let's find Jianshun first. Chanyang Prefecture is Jianshun's home. Since Jianshun isn't with the Flame Mercenaries, he must be in Chanyang Prefecture. The five of us will hurry to Chanyang Prefecture as quickly as possible, just in case Jianshun catches wind and escapes. Ma Teng immediately stood up impatiently, as if he was afraid that Jianshun would escape. Let's go to Chanyang Prefecture immediately. The five Saint Rulers did not hesitate at all. They immediately left the cave and hurried to the Kingdom of Jessen as quickly as possible. Even though the Kingdom of Jessen was several tens of thousand kilometers away from the Flame Mercenaries, even the weakest of the five Saint Rulers was at the fifth heavenly layer. With their abilities and control over space, they moved extremely quickly, arriving at the Kingdom of Jessen in just 6 hours. The Kingdom of Jessen, Lore City. The current Chanyang Prefecture was indisputably the most powerful clan in the Kingdom of Jessen. It was an existence that completely surpassed the imperial family and was revered by everyone. It was even impossible to find a powerful clan that could rival the Chanyang Prefecture within several tens of thousand kilometers. This was because the Chanyang Prefecture possessed the most dazzling and resplendent legendary figure, Chanyang Shoten. The fourth young master of the Chanyang Prefecture, Chanyang Shoten, was the captain of the Flame Mercenaries, Jianshun. This had already become an open secret, because both the fourth young master of the Chanyang Prefecture and the captain of the Flame Mercenaries were just too dazzling. Their fame was so great that basically everyone within several tens of thousand kilometers knew about them. They received the attention of countless people. As a result, there were many people who wanted to know about their legendary stories. Coupled with the fact that Jianshun did not try to hide his identity on purpose after becoming truly powerful, his true identity was discovered very quickly by some people who wanted to know about it. Chapter 716. Within Chanyang Prefecture, Bai Yuntian and her three sisters sat in the garden and chatted. Laughter would ring out from time to time, and they chatted very happily. Their topic of conversation basically revolved around Jianshun. Their words were filled with undisguised envy, as well as some jealousy. They all secretly regretted not being able to give birth to a son as outstanding as Jianshun. Bai Yuntian was grinning from ear to ear as she listened to her sisters talk about her son. She felt extremely proud of her son's talent, and because of her son, her status in Chanyang Prefecture had skyrocketed. Even the senior figures in Chanyang Prefecture treated Bai Yuntian politely now. Chanyang Ba was currently conversing with the leader of a large clan in the Kingdom of Jessen in the discussion hall of Chanyang Prefecture. Brother Chanyang Ba, what do you think of my suggestion? Although Chanyang Shoten is engaged to the Princess of Glan, it's normal for a man to have multiple wives on the Tianyuan continent. I'm willing to marry my second daughter, Kadikuli, to young Master Chanyang Shoten so that she can become one of his concubines, said the leader of the clan. He spoke extremely modestly and seemed to be pleading. Chanyang Ba chuckled. Patriarch Kadikuli, I'm really sorry. Xiang was already grown up. As his parents, it's not our place to make a decision about his marriage. Let's discuss this matter with Xiang or after he returns. Then I'll have to trouble Brother Chanyang Ba to put in a few good words for your young master. Although my second daughter, Kadikuli, is not as outstanding as the Princess of Glan, she's still a beauty that outshines the moon. She's publicly acknowledged as the second most beautiful woman in the kingdom of Jessen, said the patriarch confidently. Changyangba nodded with a smile. Of course, of course. At this moment, a tremendous pressure appeared in the surroundings, enveloping the entire Changyang prefecture. Under the influence of the pressure, everyone in Changyang prefecture immediately felt like a boulder had fallen on their chests, making it difficult for them to breathe. The sudden change shocked everyone in Changyang prefecture. However, before they could understand what was happening, a voice boomed out. The voice was old, but it was filled with vigor. Where is Jinshin? Come see me immediately. Above Changyang prefecture, 5 old men in their 70s had appeared at some point. They hovered 100 meters in the air, looking down from above. All the people in the Changyang clan silently endured the pressure as they made their way out of their rooms with great difficulty. They all raised their heads and stared at the 5 old men in the sky in both surprise and doubt. This was because they knew that the 5 old men had come with ill intentions, but they could not figure out just who would dare to offend the Changyang clan that was at the peak of its power. Changyangba, Bai Yuntian, and the other old men in the prefecture all gathered in the square in front of the hall. They stared at the 5 old men in the sky with serious expressions. A while later, Changyangba said loudly, "May I ask who the 5 seniors are and why you're looking for Xiang?" The 5 old men immediately focused their gazes on Changyangba with his words. Old man Situ waved his hand gently, and Changyangba's body seemed to be enveloped by an invisible force. He actually flew into the air quickly. "Patriarch!" All the guards and old men below cried out. They were extremely worried about Changyangba's safety, afraid that something would happen to him. "Let go of the patriarch!" At this moment, an explosive cry rang out from the crowd. An azure figure flew into the air with lightning speed, attempting to save Changyangba. Seeing the azure figure shoot up from below, one of the 5th heavenly layer saint rulers in the air could not help but sneer, "Humph, you really don't know what's good for you." Then, with a light wave of his arm, an invisible and powerful force immediately surged toward the cyan figure, ruthlessly slamming into the cyan figure's chest. Spurt! The azure figure spat out a mouthful of blood, which turned into a bloody mist that drifted through the air. He then powerlessly fell down, crashing into the ground heavily. "Changbo, steward!" The people of Changyang prefecture all cried out. They all began to panic. Changbo was a powerful heaven saint master, yet he had been injured by the 5 old men so easily. All of them found it hard to believe. The restrained Changyangba paled in fright when he saw how Changbo had been injured in a single exchange. Shock filled his eyes as he looked at the 5 old men. The strength of the old man who had just attacked him made him shiver, because Changyangba knew extremely well that even a 6-cycle heaven saint master would not be able to injure him so easily with Changbo's strength, let alone the fact that the old man had only waved his hand casually. Afterward, Changyangba seemed to think of something. A few words came out of his mouth with difficulty. "Saint rulers." Situ Gue stared at Changyangba with a sneer. "Not bad, not bad. You're quite knowledgeable to actually be able to guess our strength. You should be the patriarch of Changyang prefecture, right? You're also Jinshin's father. Tell me, where is Jinshin?" "Patriarch of Changyang prefecture. As long as you obediently answer our questions, we won't harm you. After all, not only will we not gain anything from killing you, we'll even increase our sins and cause the celestials' decay to descend earlier," Ma Tong sneered. He had captured Jinshin's father, so he refused to believe that he could not find Jinshin. Changyangba already understood that the 5 old men were Jinshin's enemies. Without any hesitation, he said, "Seniors, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Xiang likes to travel and has already left home for many days. As his father, I don't know where he is right now. Looks like you don't want to talk." Situ Gue's face darkened. He grabbed Changyangba's neck with one hand and sneered, "I don't want to kill you, but don't force me. I'll give you one more chance. Tell me where Jinshan is, or I'll have to break your neck." Changyangba had always been a tough man. He was not someone who was afraid of death. Not only did Situ Gue's threat not have any effect, but it even provoked Chanyang Ba. He said, "Kill me if you want. Even if I know where Xiang'er is, I definitely won't tell you." Chapter 717. P.S. There are a few readers who have a lot to say about these two chapters, but don't forget that powerful radiant Saint Masters can bring the dead back to life. Xiao Yao will continue writing according to his own path. Reality is cruel. The entire Chanyang prefecture fell silent. Everyone stared at the 5 old men in the sky in fear and anger, but no one was willing to speak about Jinshan's whereabouts. At this moment, 3 powerful presences flew in from outside the city. They arrived before the 5 old men very quickly. They were Qin Wuming, Qin Wujian, and Qin Wutian. "Seniors, please let go of the patriarch of the Chanyang clan. Please do not harm him. Jinshan is the imperial protector of the Qin Empire. If Jinshan has some sort of misunderstanding with you, I hope that we can all sit down and have a proper discussion. Don't ruin our friendship over such small matters." Qin Wutian clasped his hands. He could tell that the 5 old men were saint rulers from their terrifying presences. They were a great force that even the Qin Empire needed to treat with caution. They could not be underestimated, so he spoke extremely politely. What's a mere Qin Empire? The corners of old devil Ma Tung's mouth curled up in disdain. He stared coldly at Qin Wujian and the other 2 and said in a deep voice, "It's best that you don't interfere in this matter. Otherwise, even if you are from the Qin Huang kingdom, we will not be courteous to you. Go back where you came from." Ma Tung waved his hand, and a vast amount of energy of the world immediately shot toward the 3 old men. The 3 old men were unable to resist at all and were directly pushed far away by the energy of the world. Old Situ's withered hand gripped Chanyang Ba's neck tightly, preventing him from speaking. He glanced around coldly and sneered. "You all sure are tight-lipped. Since you don't want to talk, don't blame me for being merciless." Old Situ suddenly tightened his grip, and with a crack, Chanyang Ba's neck was snapped. Afterward, Old Situ let go of Chanyang Ba, and Chanyang Ba immediately fell from the sky like a broken kite. "Patriarch! Husband!" Cries rang out in Chanyang Prefecture. Everyone was filled with grief and anger. A few Earth Saint Masters immediately leapt up and carefully caught Chanyang Ba, but Chanyang Ba's neck had been snapped, and he was dead. After all, Chanyang Ba had not reached Heaven's Saint Master. His neck and heart were the most fatal parts of his body. "Patriarch!" After investigating Chanyang Ba's situation, everyone in Chanyang Prefecture let out cries of grief and anger. Many of the elders looked at the 5 old men in the sky with bloodshot eyes. "This is only an example. Tell me where Jinshan is, or directly call Jinshan out. Otherwise, this will be the fate of all of you." Old Situ sneered. "Even if we die, we won't tell you where the 4th young master is. If you have the ability, then kill us all. The 4th young master will avenge us sooner or later." A guard captain who was loyal to Chanyang Prefecture let out a furious roar, as if he did not fear death. "You're courting death." Old Situ's gaze turned cold. With a point of his finger, a bolt of energy shot out from the tip of his finger and struck the guard captain's forehead, piercing through his head. The guard captain immediately collapsed to the ground. Red and white matter constantly flowed out from the hole in his forehead. This scene deeply stunned the guards of Chanyang Prefecture. All of them stared at the 5 old men in the sky in fear. They could not help but retreat. Not all of them were loyal to Chanyang Prefecture, willing to give up their lives at any time. Immediately, a few people who were afraid of death quickly fled out of Chanyang Prefecture in order to survive. They wanted to leave this place and avoid this disaster. "If you don't tell me where Jinshan is, then don't even think about leaving," a Saint King sneered. A 5th heavenly layer Saint Ruler sneered in the sky. With a thought, a transparent barrier silently appeared, enveloping the entire clan and trapping everyone inside. They could not escape even if they wanted to. Chanyang Ba's eyes were tightly shut. He lay on the ground without moving at all. Beside him, Bai Yun Tian, Yufeng Yin, Ling Long, and Bai Yushuang were all gathered. They were all extremely heartbroken. Old man Situ's gaze landed on Bai Yun Tian's group of 4, and a cold smile appeared on his face. With a gentle wave of his sleeve, an invisible force immediately bound by Yun Tian's group of four tightly. After that, it carried their bodies and quickly floated into the sky. Tell me where Jianshan is, or don't even think about leaving alive, old Sidhu sneered. In order to find Jianshan, he had already planned on committing a massacre. Although saint rulers would incur celestial decay prematurely if they committed too many sins, that would only happen if they killed countless people. After all, a battle between saint rulers was just too large. If two saint rulers fought recklessly in a densely populated city, they could easily destroy the entire city. The millions or even tens of millions of people in the city would not be able to survive either. Only under these circumstances would celestial decay begin. If they only killed a few dozen or 100 people, there would not be any problems. Old Situ coldly stared at the four women and sneered. Tell me where Jianshan is, or don't even think about leaving alive. I'm Xianger's mother. If you want to kill someone, then kill me. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Don't involve the innocent. Bai Yintian stared at old Situ closely. There was no fear in her eyes at all. A gleam of light flashed through old Situ's eyes when he heard that. You're Jianshan's mother. Very good, very good. If I kill all of Jianshan's parents, I refuse to believe that he won't appear. Killing intent surged through old Situ's eyes. He showed no mercy at all. He tightened his grip and snapped Bai Yuntian's neck. Fourth sister, fourth madam. Cries of alarm rang out from the surroundings once more. Many old people and loyal guards had tears of pain flowing down their faces. Ling Long, Yu Fengyan, and Bai Yushuang also had sorrowful expressions. It's your turn next. Old Situ did not give them any time to catch their breaths. He coldly stared at the three remaining women and said, I'll give you one last chance. Tell me where Jianshan is, or you'll end up like Jianshan's parents. If you want to kill me, do whatever you want. You're dreaming if you want me to tell you where Xiangtian is. I, Yu Fengyan, will never tell you even if I die. Jianshan's second aunt, Yu Fengyan, stared at old Situ with eyes filled with hatred as she gritted her teeth. She hated old Situ to the core. Very good. Then you'll be the third to die. Old Situ's face sank as he grabbed Yu Fengyan's neck again. Chapter 718. Even though everything had happened extremely suddenly without any warning, the Situ old man was still a sixth heavenly layer saint ruler after all. He could not be described as slow in reacting. He immediately released his grip on Yu Fengyan's neck and retreated 100 meters in a flash. The red light moved extremely quickly as well, surpassing the speed of lightning. It actually chased after old man Situ, crossing 100 meters in a single moment and stabbing toward his forehead. A gleam of light flickered through old man Situ's eyes. He snorted coldly, and the space before him immediately froze, attempting to keep the red light in place. The red light appeared small, but it contained a powerful force. The space that had been frozen by old man Situ was unable to stop the red light at all. It was shattered by the powerful force that erupted from the red light and continued to shoot towards old man Situ's forehead. At this moment, a pitch-black staff appeared in old man Situ's hand. He held it with both hands and bellowed out. The staff immediately began to glow with a pitch-black light, stabbing toward the red light with lightning-like speed. Ding! With a crisp sound, the black staff and the red light collided, and the red light was immediately sent flying. Old man Situ's body trembled slightly. He could not help but take 3 steps back. His expression was solemn. The transparent barrier around Chanyang Prefecture suddenly shattered. Afterward, a middle-aged man in blood-red robes appeared 100 meters away. He calmly extended his hands to catch the red light. At this moment, the red light that had attacked old man Situ could be seen clearly. It was actually a long, round spike that was only as thick as a finger and around a meter long. The middle-aged man in a blood-red robe was like a demonic god as he floated in the air. His long red hair fluttered without any wind. He was expressionless as he coldly stared at the 5 people in front of him. A sharp light flashed in his eyes, and a strong killing intent was emitted without any concealment. The long thorn in his hand that seemed to be dyed in blood also emitted a demonic red light. The five old men no longer paid any attention to the people from the Changyang clan. They all stared at the man with extremely sunken faces. Someone had actually come to ruin their plans at such a crucial moment, which infuriated the five of them. "Sir, who are you? Why are you interfering in our affairs?" Ma Teng growled. His eyes flickered with intense, killing intent. Although the man in blood-red clothes was at the same level as him, Ma Teng showed no fear at all. This was because the man in blood-red clothes was alone while they had 5 people. They had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. "The 5 of you colluded with the House of Jinlijian and betrayed the human race. We are here to hunt you down under the orders of the housemaster. We will kill you all." The man in the blood-red robe said expressionlessly. His tone was very cold, without a trace of emotion. The last 3 words were said one by one. As the man in blood-red robes uttered the words, an extremely powerful killing intent suddenly erupted from his body. It swept towards the 5 of them like a surging wave. The surrounding space seemed to become sticky in the face of the killing intent. The man's control over killing intent had clearly reached a level of mastery. Even though he radiated with killing intent, the killing intent only enveloped the 5 of them. It did not spread into the distance, so it did not affect the people of Changyang Prefecture at all. The faces of old ghost Situ and the others all became solemn. The murderous aura emanating from the man in crimson clothes was so strong that it made them tremble with fear. This was because this was the pure killing intent that could only be accumulated from killing countless lives. It was completely different from the killing intent in one's heart. At this moment, they had actually sensed such powerful killing intent from a saint ruler, which filled them with disbelief. This was because saint rulers feared massacres the most. Otherwise, once they committed heinous crimes and caused celestial decay to descend, it would be impossible for them to survive. However, what shocked them even more was what the man had said. He actually knew about the 5 of them and the House of Jinlijian. This was no small matter. Once it made it out, the 5 of them would become the public enemy of the continent. "Oh no, this person actually knows about us and the House of Jinlijian. This is extremely bad for us," a 5th heavenly layer saint ruler behind Ma Teng said with a deep voice. "There's only one person. Let's go together. We have to kill him as quickly as possible. We can't let him escape." Ma Teng made up his mind. Old man Situ quickly made up his mind. He immediately rushed toward the crimson-robed man with the long staff in his hand. "Let's do it together," Ma Teng called out. He also drew his saint weapon and charged toward the man. The red-clothed man was expressionless. His body suddenly vanished without a trace. In the next moment, a strange red light appeared in front of Old Man Situ. It shot toward Old Man Situ's forehead with lightning-like speed. As the red light shot out, it continuously split into afterimages. It went from 1 to 2, from 2 to 4, and from 4 to 8. In the blink of an eye, it had actually formed a dense cluster of afterimages that enveloped Old Man Situ. Each afterimage possessed a powerful ripple of energy, as if they possessed great offensive strength. It was impossible to distinguish which was which. Old Situ bellowed out as a tremendous amount of darkness-attributed saint force surged out of his body, protecting him. At the same time, the staff in his hand was imbued with invisible world force. Old Situ waved the staff around in an airtight manner, blocking out all the red light. Just as Old Man Situ was struggling to deal with these red lights, the space in front of him suddenly cracked open. Another red light drilled out of the spatial crack and pierced towards Old Man Situ's forehead at an incomparable speed. This time, the old man was unable to react at all. The red light arrived before his forehead in the blink of an eye. In that critical moment, the old man tilted his head to the side as hard as he could, barely dodging the attack. However, a faint, bloody mark was left behind on his forehead. Just a little more, and his forehead would have been pierced and his soul would have been wiped out. The old man's face became extremely sunken. His opponent was also a 6th heavenly layer saint ruler. but his method of killing had reached a level of perfection. It was extremely strange and impossible to guard against, almost causing the old man to die. Everyone be careful. This person's attacks are very strange, the old man said with a heavy voice as he warned everyone. The crimson-robed man appeared on the other side. The red light that had left a bloody mark on Old Man Situ's forehead returned to his hand and turned into a 4-foot-long crimson-colored spike. However, the crimson-robed man moved again. His body moved and turned into a series of afterimages as he charged toward Old Man Situ and the other four. The crimson-colored spike in his hand pierced toward Old Man Situ. The old man's vigilance had reached its peak. He and his four companions struck out at the same time, attacking the red-robed man from different directions. The terrifying ripples of energy from the saint weapon shook up the surrounding space, preventing the red-robed man from mysteriously disappearing again. The crimson-robed man revealed a mocking smile. He ignored the attacks of the other four and locked onto Old Fogey Situ. However, at this moment, something strange happened. 3 streaks of red light strangely appeared behind the 3 old men, passing through their backs with lightning-like speed. The 3 streaks of red light then gathered together and shot toward Ma Teng. The red streaks of light pierced through the chests of the 3 fifth heavenly layer saint rulers, causing them to vomit blood. Disbelief filled their faces. They had actually failed to sense anything strange behind them with their strength. The attacks of the red streaks of light seemed to have been completed completely silently. If they had not seen them with their eyes, it would have been very difficult to discover their existence. When the red streaks of light passed through their bodies, a layer of baleful force remained within them. It constantly destroyed their vitality, forcing the 3 of them to give up on attacking the red-robed man. They immediately controlled their saint force to purge the baleful force. On the other side, the old man clashed with the red-robed man, while the 3 red streaks of light tangled with Ma Teng. The red streaks of light moved extremely quickly, leaving behind a few wounds on Ma Teng in just a few flashes. At the same time, a strand of baleful force remained in Ma Teng's wounds, constantly corroding them. This is baleful force. Ma Teng's face changed. He immediately abandoned the 3 streaks of light and quickly retreated. The 3 streaks of light did not chase after him. They hovered in the air, and soon, 3 more people in blood-red robes appeared beside the red streaks of light. They calmly extended their hands and grabbed the red streaks of light. It was only at this moment that he could clearly see that the 3 red lights were all perfectly round and sharp spikes that were only as thick as a finger. They were exactly the same. Old Man Situ's heart sank when he saw 3 more blood-robed men appear around him. He immediately sent out a powerful attack to knock the blood-robed man back. He then quickly retreated and gathered with Ma Teng and the other 3 companions. The 4 middle-aged men in blood-red robes did not pursue. Instead, they stood side by side in a row in the air, holding identical blood-red thorns in their hands. They stared at the 5 old men in front of them with emotionless eyes. The old man and the others stared at the 4 red-robed men with ugly expressions. When they saw the appearances of the 4 red-robed men, a sliver of surprise immediately appeared in their eyes. Not only were their clothes and weapons exactly the same, even their appearances were exactly the same. There was no difference at all. "Who are you?" the old man asked again. He was extremely curious about the identities of the 4 people. This time, the red-robed man no longer remained silent. He said emotionlessly, "The 4 protectors of the Bloodsword sect are here." Chapter 719. Not only did the 5 old men know about the existence of the Bloodsword sect, but they also knew about their strength. They immediately paled in fright. "Oh no, they're actually from the Bloodsword sect. Let's go," Ma Teng said without any hesitation. Before he had even finished speaking, he had already fled into the distance. "Let's go," Situ called out before turning around and fleeing as well. The other 3 fifth heavenly layer saint rulers obviously did not dare to stay any longer. They basically fled at the same time as Situ. "The sect master has ordered us to kill the 5 of them without mercy. Chase them." The first of the 4 blood-robed men said coldly. Afterward, the 4 of them turned into red streaks of light and chased after the 5 people with lightning-like speed. They vanished into the distance in the blink of an eye. Although the appearance of the 4 protectors had saved Chanyang Prefecture, the people of Chanyang Prefecture did not feel like they had survived a disaster. Instead, their hearts were heavy. The entire Chanyang Prefecture was filled with heavy sorrow. A few of the guards in Chanyang Prefecture had been frightened out of their wits by what had just happened. Immediately, a few of them slowly made their way out of Chanyang Prefecture with trembling legs. All of them were pale. Afterward, more and more of the cowardly guards who did not want to be involved in this matter chose to leave as well. Most of them had been recruited by Chanyang Prefecture with a large amount of money. Although they worked for the prefecture, they were not completely loyal to the prefecture. If Chanyang Prefecture was facing an ordinary opponent, they would have charged up fearlessly to kill the enemy. However, this time, Chanyang Prefecture had provoked saint rulers, and there were 5 of them. This placed tremendous pressure on them. Coupled with the fact that Jinshan's parents, Chanyang Ba and Bai Yintian, had already died, they all believed that Chanyang Prefecture was done for. Although there was still the equally powerful 4th young master, in their hearts, they all believed that the 4th young master was most likely dead. Although the higher-ups of Chanyang Prefecture had noticed the departure of these guards, none of them stopped them and allowed them to leave. It didn't take long for most of the guards, maids, and attendants in Chanyang Prefecture to leave. Only about 400 guards who were loyal to Chanyang Prefecture remained. Apart from them, there were also some mercenaries and attendants who were born and raised in Chanyang Prefecture. Without exception, the parents of these attendants were all old employees of Chanyang Prefecture. Some of them had even worked for Chanyang Prefecture for generations and were extremely loyal to Chanyang Prefecture. Fourth sister, nothing must happen to you. Hurry and wake up. Jinshan's second aunt, Yu Fengyan, was crying beside Bai Yuntian. She kept shaking Bai Yuntian's body. Around them, a group of old people from Chanyang Prefecture were all silent. Their expressions were also filled with grief. Today was definitely a heavy blow to Chanyang Prefecture. News of the calamity of the Chanyang clan spread in all directions like a storm. Very soon, it had reached a radius of 10,000 kilometers, causing everyone who heard the news to be greatly alarmed. In the Qin Empire, at this moment, Jianshan was drinking and chatting happily with the 3rd prince, Jianshan, in Xingyan Palace. There were more than a dozen people sitting around the large round table. However, among these people, except for Jianshan and Qinji, who were both men, the rest were all women. They were all princesses of the Qin Empire or daughters of some big family in the imperial city. They were all beautiful, and there were even a few who were so beautiful that they outshone the moon. They were all famous girls of the Qin Empire. These girls had either been instructed by their seniors or had come of their own accord. Their intentions were obvious. Beside Jianshan, the 2 princesses, Qin Shuang and Qin Yubing, sat close to Jianshan. They constantly poured wine and dishes for Jianshan. Their gazes toward Jianshan were filled with admiration and infatuation. Ha, brother Jianshan, I, Qinji, have lived in Xingyan Palace for 30 years, but it's never been as lively as it is today. All the peak beauties of the Qin Empire and the daughters of a few big families have gathered in my Xingyan Palace. It's truly an honor for my small Xingyan Palace. Qinji drank all the wine in his cup and laughed heartily. This was the joy he felt inside. Jianshan was now a true saint ruler. His status was completely different from before, but Jianshan still remembered him as a brother. This made Qinji extremely excited. This was because he was the brother of the 3rd prince, Qinji. He was the true imperial protector of the Qin Empire. With this relationship, he could even speak with confidence in front of his father. Qinji could even clearly feel that his father's attitude toward him was completely different from before. Even the powerful nobles and officials of the Qin Empire treated him much more courteously than before. Jianshan smiled warmly. He was a loyal person. Although he did not have a lot of brothers, Qinji was one of them. As a result, no matter how much he changed, he would never forget about his brotherly love. Jianshun clinked his cup with Qin Ji's and wanted to drink the wine. However, as soon as the cup touched Jianshun's lips, Jianshun's body suddenly trembled violently. Some of the wine in the cup spilled out, staining Jianshun's clothes. Qin Yubing and Qin Shuang immediately picked up the handkerchief that had accompanied them for many years and gently wiped the wine off Jianshun's clothes. They exhaled and gently said, "Master Jianshun, slow down. Look, the wine has spilled on your clothes." Jianshun did not hear the two princesses' voices at all. He slowly put down his cup and clutched his chest. His face became uncertain, and his expression gradually became grave. Noticing Jianshun's abnormality, Qin Ji immediately became concerned. He asked, "Brother Jianshun, what's wrong?" Jianshun did not reply. He furrowed his brows tightly and pressed his hand against his chest. Suddenly, he felt an indescribable pain in his heart. At the same time, his calm state of mind began to waver. He became agitated. A strong sense of unease and impatience deeply filled Jianshun's mind. "What's going on? What's going on? What's happening?" Jianshun murmured in a daze. He had never encountered such a situation. Even when facing an undefeatable enemy or facing a calamity, he had never experienced such a feeling. "Brother Jianshun, what's going on with you?" Qin Ji put down his cup and stared at Jianshun in confusion. "I don't know why I've suddenly become uneasy." Jianshun slowly stood up from his chair and paced back and forth in the palace. His brows were tightly furrowed together. He did not understand what had happened at all. Sitting at the table, the geniuses from the various clans all looked at each other. They did not know what had happened to Jianshun. Suddenly, Jianshun's eyes flashed. His face immediately sank as he thought to himself, "Did something happen at home?" Thinking of this, the uneasiness in Jianshun's heart became even more intense. His expression could not help but change as a strong sense of fear filled his heart. This fear was not the kind of fear that came from facing an undefeatable enemy. Instead, it came from a fear of something happening. "Brother Qin Ji, I have to go back immediately. I'll take my leave first." Jianshun could not sit still for a moment. He immediately said goodbye to Qin Ji and apologized to the geniuses at the table. Then, he hurriedly left Yinshin Palace and headed for the space door in the palace. Qin Ji did not ask him to stay. He stood in Yinshin Palace and stared at Jianshun's departing figure. His face was full of confusion. After a while, he murmured in a low voice, "Did something happen at home?" Jianshun left in such a hurry that he did not even have time to bid farewell to the king of the Qin Empire and the four imperial protector. He directly used his identity as the imperial protector to open the space door and left the Qin Empire through it. Since there was a positioning device for the space door outside of Lore City in the Kingdom of Jessin, Jianshun directly arrived outside of Lore City in the Kingdom of Jessin through the space door in the Qin Empire. When Jianshun arrived outside of Lore City, he was in the middle of the military camp of the 500,000-strong Eastern Deity Sword Legion. There were constantly squads of soldiers in silver-white armor patrolling everywhere. The space door, tearing through space, alerted the soldiers of the Eastern Deity Sword Legion. Immediately, many of them noticed Jianshun stepping out of the space door. However, these soldiers obviously recognized Jianshun. When they saw that it was Jianshun, they all knelt on one knee and shouted, "Greetings, Lord Imperial Protector." In the blink of an eye, the surroundings were filled with people kneeling. Jianshun did not have time to pay attention to these soldiers. He immediately soared into the sky and flew towards Lore City. In Chanyang Prefecture, Jianshun's figure descended from the sky. As soon as his feet touched the ground, Jianshun's entire body seemed to have been petrified. He stood there in a daze, completely dumbfounded. In front of him, there were still some old people and guards who had not dispersed in a circle. In the center of the circle, Bai Yuntian and Changyangba were lying there with their eyes closed. Their faces were deathly pale. All the remaining people of Chanyang Prefecture were gathered here. None of them said a word. Every one of them was in an extremely heavy mood. Thick grief shrouded the entire Chanyang Prefecture. At this moment, less than 2 hours had passed since the tragedy occurred. Chapter 720. Father, Mother. After a while, two sorrowful voices rang out from Jinshin's mouth. Jinshin slowly made his way towards the crowd with trembling legs. It's the fourth young master's voice. The fourth young master has returned. The fourth young master has returned. The gathered guards discovered Jinshin as well. They all called out, but their voices were not filled with joy like before. Instead, they were filled with sorrow and bitterness. A path immediately formed in front of Jinshin. He made his way in with trembling legs. Finally, he arrived before by Yuntian and Changyangba. Looking at his parents on the ground with their eyes closed, Jinshin's heart was filled with sorrow. "Father, mother!" Jinshin cried out sorrowfully. He was heartbroken, and his eyes became scarlet. Two streaks of blood-red tears flowed from his eyes, slowly flowing down his cheeks. With his current ability, he could naturally sense that his parents were already dead. Even if he had a high-grade radiant spirit pill, he would not be able to save their lives. "Fourth young master, I'm sorry. I'm useless. I failed to protect the patriarch and madam." Changbo was pale as he tottered over to Jinshin. He blamed himself. Jinshin said nothing. He stared blankly at his parents' bodies as tears of blood flowed from his eyes. A while later, Jinshin's blank eyes finally glowed a little. Afterwards, his gaze immediately became filled with shock. He growled, "What happened? Who killed my parents?" Jinshin's voice was not loud, but it was filled with iciness. Even the surrounding temperature plummeted with his words, becoming chilly. As for the guards and elders around them, they suddenly felt a chill enveloping their bodies, causing them to shiver uncontrollably. Although Jinshin did not give off any presence right now, his voice sounded like the god of death to the surrounding people. It was extremely terrifying. "Fourth young master," just then, a few saint rulers came to the Changyang clan to look for you. They were the ones who killed the patriarch and the fourth madam. Uncle Chang said with a heavy voice and a sorrowful expression. Jinshin clenched his fists tightly. A powerful killing intent radiated from his body, causing the surrounding space to become sticky. At this moment, Jinshin suddenly raised his head and looked into the distance. He saw four blood-red figures quickly fly over. A powerful killing intent condensed around the four of them, slowly revolving around them. The baleful force could only be condensed from slaughtering countless lives and using special anti-heat methods. Jinshin immediately sensed that the four of them were saint rulers and immediately treated them as the murderers of his parents. Hatred immediately filled his eyes, and his gaze became filled with shock. The chaotic Niden in Jinshin's dantian began to violently tremble. Strands of chaotic force surged out from the Niden, surging through Jinshin's body like a wild horse. It filled every corner of his body. At the same time, a surging presence radiated from Jinshin, shooting into the sky. It was accompanied by a powerful killing intent, actually condensing into a dark cloud in the sky. "Ark!" Jinshin roared at the sky. His long hair danced wildly without any wind. His ruler armament, the dragon-slaying sword, immediately appeared in his right hand, shining with a dark light. Suddenly, Jinshin shot into the sky. With the dragon-slaying sword in hand, he shot toward the four red figures with lightning-like speed. The four figures came to a sudden halt when they saw Jinshin charge over like a madman. They hovered in the air as they frowned. "Pay with your life for my parents." Jinshin roared at the sky as he swung the dragon-slaying sword at the four people. A powerful sword chi shot toward the four people with a devastating presence. Wherever the sword chi passed, space would be sliced open. A thin, pitch-black crack would appear, but it would close up in the blink of an eye. What kind of energy is this? It's so powerful. A man in blood-red clothes cried out in surprise. A red spike appeared in his hand. At the same time, the same red spike appeared in the hands of the other three people. The four spikes stabbed out at the same time, flying toward Jinshin's sword chi with a dense baleful force. Boom! The sword chi from chaotic force collided with the four spikes, immediately producing a great boom. The powerful ripples of energy turned into wild gales that wreaked havoc in the surroundings. The sword chi condensed from chaotic force was dispersed by the four red thorns. However, the baleful force on the 4 red thorns had become much dimmer as a result. Afterwards, the 4 red thorns flew into the hands of the 4 men at the same time. Jinshin knew that the 4 people were powerful, but he showed no fear at all. He coldly stared at the 4 of them as a powerful and pure sword chi radiated from his body. Along with it was a heavy, killing intent. "Stop! 4th young master! Stop!" At this moment, an old and weak voice rang out from behind. The pale-faced Chang Bo controlled the energy of the world as he flew out of Changyang Prefecture. Even though it was just a casual attack from a saint ruler, he was still extremely heavily injured from the attack. After flying for a short distance, the energy of the world that supported him rapidly dispersed, and Chang Bo fell from the sky. The coldness in Jinshin's eyes faded slightly. His face immediately changed when he saw Chang Bo fall from the sky. His childhood memories immediately surfaced in his head, and he no longer cared about the 4 blood-red men. He fused with the surrounding space and arrived before Chang Bo with lightning speed to catch him. A mouthful of blood spurted from Chang Bo's mouth, dyeing his old face red. With a thought from Jinshin, a few radiant spirit pills immediately flew out of his space ring and entered Chang Bo's mouth. With the help of the radiant spirit pills, Chang Bo's worsening wounds gradually stabilized. He stared at Jinshin dully and said weakly, "4th young master, it's not them. They're not the ones who killed the patriarch and the 4th madam. If they hadn't suddenly arrived and chased away the culprits, there probably wouldn't be a single person left alive in Changyang Prefecture right now." Jinshin raised his head and glanced at the 4 blood-red men in the distance. The cold, killing intent in his eyes gradually dispersed, and even his presence slowly vanished. Without saying anything else, he carried Chang Bo back to Changyang Prefecture. Chapter 721. Now that the head of Changyang Prefecture had passed away, Jinshin had secretly become the head of Changyang Prefecture. Even those old people in Changyang Prefecture had confirmed Jinshin's identity. Under Jinshin's orders, Changyang Prefecture had been closed and no guests were received. The people from the big families who had come to express their condolences were all blocked outside. As a result, the inside of Changyang Prefecture was filled with people, and the main gate of Changyang Prefecture was so tightly packed that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Even so, the people from the big families who were blocked outside did not dare to have the slightest resentment. Not to mention that the genius of Changyang Prefecture was in the mansion. Changyang Prefecture had encountered such a great disaster today. It was reasonable for them to do something abnormal or even extreme. In Changyang Prefecture, in a spacious room, it was filled with people at the moment. Almost all the old people and direct descendants of Changyang Prefecture had gathered here. In front of the crowd, on the luxurious bed, Bai Yuntian and Changyang Ba were lying there. Jinshin sat on the edge of the bed with a dull expression. His eyes stared blankly at his parents who were lying unconscious on the bed. His whole body seemed to be petrified, and he did not move at all. Behind Jinshin, Jinshin's eldest Aunt Linglong and 3rd aunt Bai Yushuang's faces were full of tears. They stood there with a pained expression and did not say a word. His 2nd aunt Yufengyan's eyes were red and swollen from crying. Beside her, Jinshin's eldest brother Changyang Ba sat in a wheelchair. He stared calmly at the two lying on the bed. Changyang Ba and Bai Yuntian were both dead, and Changyang, who was the only one who could remain calm. However, his eyes were constantly changing colors. Sometimes it was painful, sometimes it was sad, sometimes it was confused, sometimes it was melancholy, sometimes it was empty, and sometimes it was calm. Almost all the colors that could appear in this world flashed in Changyang Ba's eyes. At this moment, no one knew what Changyang Ba was thinking. Although the spacious and luxurious room was filled with people, surprisingly not a single sound was emitted. The atmosphere was very stifling. The news of the death of the patriarch and the 4th young master of the Changyang Prefecture, Changyang Shoten's mother, rapidly spread. The next morning, the king of the kingdom of Jessen and the commander of the Imperial Guard, Bai Dao, arrived at Changyang Prefecture together with a Heaven Saint Master. 2 hours later, the principal of the Kargath Academy, Kafir, arrived at Changyang Prefecture as well. Afterward, Basically, all the important people in the kingdom of Jessen gathered in Lore City. The matter in Chanyang Prefecture had caused a great commotion. These people had come to confirm the truth of the matter, as well as to express their concern. However, all of them were stopped at the entrance without any exception. They were unable to enter Chanyang Prefecture. Only the king and the principal of the Kargath Academy, who were on good terms with Chanyang Prefecture, could enter. Sister, I'll definitely avenge you. No matter how powerful the enemy is, as long as I'm alive, I'll definitely avenge you. Bai Dao's face was filled with grief as he looked at Bai Yun Tian on the bed. He clenched his fists tightly, and his not-so-sharp fingernails dug deep into his palms, causing him to bleed. A sliver of reminiscence appeared in the depths of Bai Dao's eyes. He could not help but think back to the time when he had escaped with his sister over 20 years ago. At that moment, Bai Dao made up his mind that he would do everything he could to increase his strength in the future. In the blink of an eye, another day passed. On this day, Yu Yu, Bai Lian, Jitatai, Nubis, Bai Hai, and Huang Luan returned to Chanyang Prefecture. Tiamu Ling and the old woman from the Tiamu clan had also returned with them. The old woman glanced around and glanced past Chanyang Prefecture. Her gaze seemed to be able to pierce through space, allowing her to observe the situation in Chanyang Prefecture clearly. She gently sighed inside and said, I wonder just who has angered Jianshan to make those saint rulers move against his parents and do something so despicable. Sai Ling went as far as to ask the old man to watch over the flame mercenaries. Looks like Jianshan's position in Ling Er's heart is quite special. However, our Tiamu clan has helped Jianshan so much this time, so Jianshan must not forget about it. The matter of the tungsten alloy mine should be settled much more easily. The old man in the old woman's heart was the grandfather Tiamu Ling had mentioned. He was a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler, and he was an old man's wife with Tiamu Ling's grandmother. Bai Yin and Yu Yu were extremely heartbroken after learning about Bai Yuntian and Chanyang Ba's situation. Bai Yin, in particular, had actually fainted from the heartache. Bai Hai was unable to suppress his anger as well. He swore that he would personally cut the 5 murderers to pieces. After all, Bai Yuntian was one of the few remaining members of the Bai family. Bai Hai felt very pained by her passing. Chanyang Prefecture did not hold a grand funeral for Bai Yuntian and Chanyang Ba. The senior members of Chanyang Prefecture had suggested holding a funeral for the two of them many times, but they were all rejected by Jianshan in an irresistible manner, which made the senior members of Chanyang Prefecture feel very helpless. Jianshan remained in the room for 3 whole days. Only then did he gradually calm down from his initial anger and sorrow. 3 days later, most of the people in the room had left. Only a few people remained. Jianshan finally moved after remaining motionless for 3 days. He made his way to the bedside step by step and gently covered his parents with blankets. He gently said, Father, Mother, don't worry. I will definitely revive you. Jianshan's gaze suddenly became determined. He knew that powerful Radiant Saint Masters could not only regrow limbs, but they could even bring people back from the dead. Chanyang Ba sat in his wheelchair in confusion. The confusion in his eyes quickly vanished when he heard Jianshan's words. He was completely calm. There was no sorrow, no joy, not even a hint of emotion. He was terrifyingly calm. Brother, we'll be relying on you for father and aunt, Chanyang Ba gently said to Jianshan. Jianshan looked at his brother deeply and nodded. Brother, don't worry. I swear that I will definitely revive father and mother. At that moment, Jianshan became even more determined to go to the Holy Emperor's empire and become a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master. Jianshan comforted Bai Lian, who was heartbroken, before leaving the room. Jianshan immediately ran into Tiamu Ling and the old woman in the room. However, Jianshan was in no mood to chat with them right now. After a few words, he left the room to get some fresh air. Jianshan's eyes suddenly narrowed when he arrived outside. He stared at the 4 middle-aged men in blood-red robes nearby. At that moment, the 4 men stood side by side with their arms crossed. Their eyes were closed. Although they just stood there, they seemed to possess the presence of the world, as if they had fused with the world. The guards of Chanyang Prefecture all knew how powerful the four men were. As a result, no one dared to chase away the four men, even though Chanyang Prefecture was closed to the outside world. During that time, a few senior figures from Chanyang Prefecture even went up to thank them politely. However, the four men were extremely cold. They completely ignored the senior figures and did not even open their eyes. Jianshun studied the four men for a while. From their identical appearances, he could roughly guess that they were quadruplets if they had not undergone some special treatment. Jianshun did not know their identities, but Jianshun was grateful that they had saved Chanyang Prefecture from a crisis, preventing a great disaster for Chanyang Prefecture. Just when Jianshun was about to thank the four men, they suddenly opened their eyes at the same time. They looked at Jianshun. There was no emotion in their eyes at all, only coldness and emotionlessness. Jianshun, the four of us have been waiting here under the orders of the sect master to pass on a message to you. The ruler of the Gilligan clan has already sent a few human experts to deal with you, so you should be careful. An emotionless voice rang out in Jianshun's head. This was a communication technique that only saint rulers could use. With that, the four men shot into the sky as blood-red streaks of light, disappearing into the horizon in the blink of an eye. Jianshun became stern. He then stared deeply at the four men who had vanished into the horizon. The light in his eyes flickered as his face became unsettled. Just who are the four of them? Who is the sect master they mentioned? Why does he know that the ruler of the Gilligan clan wants to deal with me? Does he already know about the winged tiger? Jianshun constantly thought about these questions. The figures of the mysterious Uncle Xiao and the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, Tianjian, constantly appeared in his head, but he was uncertain. Jianshun had always believed Uncle Xiao to be a saint ruler in the past because he possessed the abilities of saint rulers. However, after reaching saint ruler, this belief began to waver because Jianshun had always been guessing Uncle Xiao's strength. He still had no idea whether Uncle Xiao was a saint ruler or above. Chapter 722. Jianshun stood there silently as he stared in the direction the four men had disappeared in. The light in his eyes flickered. Fourth young master, my condolences. The patriarch and madam have already passed away. Let's hold a funeral for them as soon as possible. At this moment, an old man arrived beside Jianshun and whispered to Jianshun. The old man was a senior figure in the Chanyang Prefecture. He was an Earth Saint Master. Jianshun calmed himself down and gently shook his head. There's no need for a funeral. Father and mother aren't dead. I will definitely save them. The old man gently sighed when he heard that. He believed that Jianshun had become delirious from grief. Elder, who were the four people who just left? Jianshun gently asked. His tone was very calm and did not change at all. The old man thought for a while before replying. Fourth young master, I'm not very sure about the identities of the four experts from before, but I think I heard them say that they were from the Bloodsword sect. Bloodsword sect? Jianshun softly murmured. A sliver of doubt flashed through his eyes. He was extremely unfamiliar with the name of the sect. After a moment of hesitation, Jianshun left the place. He arrived in a garden in the Chanyang Prefecture and saw the ancestor of the Bai family, Bai Hai, sitting in a pavilion in the garden, drinking alone. Jianshun looked at the ancestor of the Bai family with mixed feelings. He knew that the matter of his mother had saddened the ancestor. After all, the Bai family was no longer the glorious Bai family of the past. It could be said that every single descendant of the Bai family was Bai Hai's favorite, a treasure in the palm of his hand. Great-grandfather. Jianshun arrived in the pavilion and sat down across from Bai Hai. Bai Hai put down his cup and raised his head to look at Jianshun. From Jianshun's calm gaze, he could tell that Jianshun had already recovered from the pain from a few days ago. Bai Hai gently sighed. Great-grandson, take good care of your parents' bodies. You're already a Class 6 Radiant Saint Master now. Once you reach the 7th class, you should have the ability to revive them. With that, Bai Hai poured himself another cup of wine and downed it in a single gulp. Jianshun nodded. Great-grandfather, there's something I'd like to ask you about. May I ask if you know about the Bloodsword sect? A gleam of light immediately flashed through Bai Hai's eyes when he heard the words Bloodsword sect. He stared at Jianshun in interest and sternly asked, Great-grandson, Where did you learn about the Bloodsword sect? The four red-robed, middle-aged men from before should be from the Bloodsword sect, Jinshin replied. What? The four of them are from the Bloodsword sect? Bai was slightly surprised, but he soon understood. He murmured, no wonder the four of them are always surrounded by a layer of powerful, baleful inchi. They've killed countless people before using a special method to condense it. As it turns out, the four of them are actually from the Bloodsword sect. A sliver of reminiscence appeared in Bai's eyes as a few past events appeared in his head. He slowly downed the wine in his cup and slowly said, I know a little about the Bloodsword sect, but my knowledge is extremely limited. The Bloodsword sect is one of the three great assassin organizations on the Tianyuan continent, ranked second. Not only is it extremely mysterious, but it's not weak either. It completely surpasses the hermit clans and can rival ancient clans. However, 1,000 years ago, the three peak assassin organizations of the Tianyuan continent began a large-scale war for some reason. After the war ended, the Bloodsword sect vanished from the continent, never appearing again. I just never thought that the four blood-red men would be from the Bloodsword sect. Great-grandfather, do you know who the sect master of the Bloodsword sect is? Jinshin asked. Since the four experts had been sent by the sect master definitely had some sort of relationship with him. Otherwise, why would the Bloodsword sect that had vanished for 1,000 years reappear? Why would they help him and prevent the destruction of Chanyang Prefecture? Bai shook his head. Back then, I was only a puny heaven saint master. What kind of status did the sect master have? Coupled with the fact that the sect has always been mysterious, how would I have a right to know his name? There aren't a lot of people who know the sect master's name on the Tianyuan continent, but I happen to be one of them. At this moment, an old voice rang out from nearby. The granny, Tianmu Ling, slowly walked toward the pavilion with a cane. Jianshun and Bai immediately stood up and clasped their hands at the old woman. Greetings, senior. Wang Yinhong chuckled. There's no need to be so courteous. I came here without permission and eavesdropped on your conversation, so please don't take offense. However, Jianshun, I do know quite a lot about the Bloodsword sect you speak of. Jianshun hurriedly invited the old woman to sit down in the pavilion. He had already learned from the people who had returned that the flame mercenaries had also encountered a great disaster. Even newbies Bai and Jitatai had been heavily injured. In the end, it was the old woman who had saved the flame mercenaries, so Jianshan felt extremely grateful to her. Senior, please tell me about the Bloodsword sect, Jianshan eagerly asked as soon as the old woman sat down. The old woman kindly smiled. Jianshan, before I tell you about the Bloodsword sect, there's something I want to discuss with you. Back then, I helped you repel powerful enemies in the flame mercenaries and ensured the safety of your friends and family. However, I won't help people for no reason. Since I've helped you, I obviously need to repay you. Jianshun, you must remember that you owe me a favor. Jianshun sternly replied, Senior, this junior will never forget your kindness. A drop of water should be repaid with a spring. If you need Jianshun in the future, Jianshun will definitely not turn you down as long as it's within my power. Jianshun struggled to imagine what would have happened to the flame mercenaries if the old woman had not assisted them when they were attacked by the 5 saint rulers. Although his friends and family might not have died, he would definitely have been caught between a rock and a hard place. Wang Yanhong smiled from ear to ear when she heard Jinshin's words. She said, Let me tell you about the Bloodsword sect now. The Bloodsword sect is a powerful assassination organization on the Tianyuan continent. They've existed for several tens of thousands of years, and they're no weaker than ancient clans. They practice a special cultivation method that allows them to increase their strength through slaughter. Every time they kill someone, they'll condense a strand of baleful yin-chi. The more people they kill, the denser the baleful yin-chi will become. Not only can the baleful yin-chi befuddle a person's mind, causing them to enter a temporary state of confusion, it can also wipe out a person's soul, killing them without leaving a trace. It's feared by everyone on the Tianyuan continent. However, the baleful yin-chi of the Bloodsword sect has a great drawback. which is that it'll be depleted with every strand used. If it's used up too much, it can only be replenished through slaughter. As a result, only people below Heaven's Saint Master often use the baleful Enchi. Saint rulers rarely use the baleful Enchi against their enemies unless they're in life-threatening danger. Due to the limitations of celestial decay, saint rulers are unable to engage in wanton slaughter, so the baleful Enchi will be depleted with every use. It's basically impossible to replenish it. However, once the saint rulers of the Bloodsword sect use the baleful Enchi against their enemies, they'll be able to kill saint rulers in a single strike unless the difference in strength is just too great. This is their greatest method of survival. A sliver of deep fear appeared in Wang Yanhong's eyes when she reached there. So that's how it is. No wonder I sensed so much baleful Enchi from the four of them. It must have been condensed before they reached Saint Ruler, Jinshin thought. He could not help but think of the four men in blood-red clothes. But 1,000 years ago, something happened to the three assassin organizations of the Tian Yuan continent. It was all caused by the current sect master of the Bloodsword sect. He was extremely talented, and after several thousand years of cultivation, he reached the 9th heavenly layer of the Holy Emperor. He became the only person who was infinitely close to the Holy Emperor since the founding of the Bloodsword sect. Because of his existence, the strength of the Bloodsword sect skyrocketed, becoming a sect that completely surpassed ancient clans and could rival the 10 protector clans. After reaching such a level of strength, the current sect master of the Bloodsword sect became one of the few supreme experts on the Tian Yuan continent. As a result, he wanted to unify all the assassin organizations. As a result, the other two organizations worked together and engaged in a great battle against the Bloodsword sect. However, the current sect master's strength has already reached the apex. Even with the entire continent in perspective, only Mercenary City, the Protector clans, and the Path Lord of Carnal Desires can contend against him. Although the other two assassin organizations have already worked together, they're still not the Bloodsword sect's opponent. The leaders of the two assassin organizations have even been injured by the sect master. They're in grave danger. But at this moment, something unfortunate happened. The other two organizations actually used a scheme to draw out the partner of the sect master of the Bloodsword sect. They surrounded her and killed her. Her soul was destroyed, and even powerful Radiant Saint Masters were unable to save her. The sect master of the Bloodsword sect found his partner after he reached the level of Holy Emperor. She held an extremely important position in the sect master's heart. She was even pregnant before she died. The death of his partner has dealt a heavy blow to the master of the Bloodsword sect. In just a single night, the master of the Bloodsword sect has undergone an overwhelming change. His handsome face, which had always been in his 20s, has aged overnight. Even his black hair has turned white. Afterwards, the sect master of the Bloodsword sect used a 10,000-year-old heavenly treasure to save the child in his partner's womb. He brought his dead partner and young son alone to carry out a crazy revenge on the two assassin organizations. In this battle, the sect master dealt a devastating blow to the two assassin organizations. All the experts of the two assassin organizations died at the hands of the sect master of the Bloodsword sect, greatly damaging their vitality. After this matter, the renowned Bloodsword sect vanished from the Tian Yuan continent. As for the sect master, he never appeared on the Tian Yuan continent. There wasn't even any news about him. It was as if he had vanished. No one knew where he had gone. During this time, there were many rumors. Some said that the sect master had died from celestial decay because he had killed too many people. Some people say that the sect master of the Bloodsword sect is in so much pain that he wants to die that he's gone after someone's dead wife. There are also people who say that the sect master of the Bloodsword sect has already retired from the continent, living a life of isolation. However, no matter how vicious the rumors are, the sect master of the Bloodsword sect has never appeared on the continent. No one knows if he's retired or gone after someone's dead wife. Senior, do you know the name of the sect master of the Bloodsword sect? Jinshin was rather urgent. Chapter 723. Houston, Jinshin murmured. His eyes immediately lit up. and he could not help but think of Uncle Shio's old and upright figure. Houston, Uncle Shio, the master of the Bloodsword sect, Houston, actually has the same surname as Uncle Shio from Longevity Valley. Are they the same person? Jinshin murmured inside. He also thought of how Uncle Shio had recognized the white tiger at first glance. Jinshin could not help but look at his shoulder when he thought of the white tiger. He saw the snow-white white tiger curled up on his shoulder like a kitten, sleeping and digesting the medicine in its body. Afterwards, Jinshin looked at the powerful Wang Yinhong. He discovered that Wang Yinhong only stared at him with shining eyes. She completely ignored the white tiger on his shoulder. Clearly, she had not discovered the true identity of the white tiger. Jinshin, have you seen the master of the Bloodsword sect before? Wang Yinhong's eyes were extraordinarily bright as she stared at Jinshin closely. Wang Yinhong had seen the 4 men in blood-red robes who had appeared in Chanyang Prefecture before, and she had guessed their identities from the dense, baleful yin-chi they gave off. They were from the Bloodsword sect that had vanished for 1,000 years, and they were not weak either. Clearly, their statuses were significant. Wang Yinhong was extremely curious as to why the Bloodsword sect had come to Chanyang Prefecture. She wanted to know the answer, but her first guess was that Jinshin definitely had some connection with the Bloodsword sect. Jinshin shook his head. Senior, I've only heard about the Bloodsword sect today. I don't know the master of the sect either. Although that was what he said, Jinshin constantly thought of Uncle Shio. Uncle Shio had always given off an unfathomable feeling to Jinshin, and he had the same surname as the master of the Bloodsword sect. Moreover, the circumstances of Uncle Shio's family matched the master of the Bloodsword sect very well. He had no partner, only a son and a grandson. He just did not know how old his son, Shiomi, was right now. At the same time, only the Grand Elder of Mercenary City and Uncle Shio could tell the white tiger's identity with a single glance. It was evident how extraordinary Uncle Shio was. However, although Jinshin had guessed that the master of the Bloodsword sect might be closely related to Uncle Shio, he was not certain. After leaving the garden, Jinshin immediately bought a 1,000-year coffin of ice for quite a hefty price. He placed his parents' bodies inside. Although powerful Radiant Saint Masters could bring people back to life, the bodies had to be preserved first. Jinshin remained in Chanyang Prefecture for 7 days. During those 7 days, Chanyang Prefecture was enveloped by clouds of grief. Most of the people who had gathered outside Chanyang Prefecture had left. Not many of them remained, but none of them took a single step into Chanyang Prefecture. 7 days later, Jinshin emerged from his grief. However, the matter of his parents still left a mark on Jinshin that could not be erased. It made him seem even colder. He always wore a stern face and had basically lost his smile. On this day, Jinshin bid farewell to his family and left Chanyang Prefecture with the coffin containing his parents' bodies. He was about to travel far away, so he was afraid that something would happen to his parents' bodies. As a result, he needed to find a safe place to place his parents' bodies and ensure that nothing would happen. Only then would he be able to leave in peace. Although the coffin could be stored in a space ring, Jinshin did not do so. He was a saint ruler now, but he was not an invincible existence on the Tianyuan continent. At the same time, there were 5 powerful saint rulers hunting him down. If anything happened to him, his parents would never see the light of day again. Time could wash away everything. After 7 days, the tragedy in Chanyang Prefecture gradually settled down. However, Jinshin carried the coffin and flew 10,000 meters in the air. He hurried toward the Qin Empire. He planned on placing his parents' bodies in the Qin Empire's Qin Tian Hall. On the same day, Jinshin's uncle, Bai Dao, resigned from his position as the commander of the Imperial Guards. He silently left the kingdom of Jessen on a Class 4 magical beast. Bai Dao had thought it through very clearly during this period of time. If he wanted to increase his strength quickly, he needed to train himself through life and death situations in addition to working hard on cultivation. Only through the baptism of blood could he grow quickly. His nephew was the best example. If he just stayed in the Imperial Palace, who knew how long it would take for him to break through to Heaven's Saint Master? Jianshun returned to the Qin Empire through a space gate in the Great Zhou Empire. He then placed his parents' bodies in the Qin Tian Hall and entrusted them to the 4 other imperial protector. The king and the 3rd prince of the Qin Empire felt rather heavy over the death of Jianshun's parents. They properly comforted Jianshun. However, under Jianshun's strong request, the matter of his parents was not made public. Only a very small number of people in the Qin Empire knew about it. After settling down his parents, Jianshun went to another Qin Tian Hall to have a secret discussion with the 4 other imperial protector. He then left the Qin Empire early the next morning and arrived in the Great Zhou Empire through a space gate in the Qin Empire. Afterward, Jianshun went to the Tianqin clan to visit Qin Shao. Jianshun had originally planned on taking Qin Shao to the Flame Mercenaries to train, but with so many things that had happened to the Flame Mercenaries and the fact that he was about to leave, he could only give up on the idea of taking Qin Shao with him. This was because although the Flame Mercenaries possessed a certain level of strength, they still faced great challenges. It was not a safe place, so taking Qin Shao with him might bring trouble to Qin Shao. Moreover, due to the Winged Tiger, he and the Flame Mercenaries would be dragged into the mess. Even the Chanyang Prefecture would not be spared. If Qin Shao joined the Flame Mercenaries at this time, he would be dragging him into the abyss of hell without a doubt. The slightest mistake might even involve the Tianqin clan. This was because Jianshun had a strong premonition that he might become the public enemy of the Tian Yuan continent once the news of the Winged Tiger was leaked. After leaving the Tianqin clan, Jianshun directly returned to the kingdom of Jessun. He called Jitatai and newbies over and told them about the Holy Emperor's empire and the intentions of the Qin Empire's imperial protector. With Jianshun's words, newbies declined without any hesitation. Jianshun, please don't drag me into this matter. The 3 great clans of the Holy Emperor's empire all possess Holy Emperor experts. They possess the strength of ancient clans and cannot be underestimated. Moreover, the great newbies, have nothing to do with the Holy Emperor's empire. Their internal strife has nothing to do with me. So the great newbies, will never get involved in this matter. It's basically a pit of hell, and whoever jumps in will suffer. Jianshun was not surprised by newbie's refusal. He then looked at Jitatai. Jitatai was expressionless as he said in an extremely calm voice, Jianshun, the old man has already pledged his loyalty to you. Even his old life is yours. I will listen to all of your orders. Jianshun nodded, but did not say anything. Jitatai's attitude had increased his status in Jianshun's heart. Jianshun pondered for a moment, then said, Newbies is right. There is indeed no need for you to get involved in the internal strife of the Holy Emperor's empire. If you do not handle it well, you may get into trouble and even die. Forget it. The 2 of you will stay here and protect Chanyang Prefecture and the Flame Mercenaries. I will leave tomorrow. Jianshun, there is no need for you to get involved in such a thankless task. Newbies wanted to persuade Jianshun, but before he could finish, Jianshun raised his hand to stop him. I must go to the Holy Emperor's empire. Only there will I have the hope of reviving my parents. Therefore, no matter what dangers await me, I must go. Jianshun's tone was unprecedentedly resolute. The next morning, Jianshun bid farewell to everyone and left Chanyang Prefecture. Jianshun's figure turned into a bolt of lightning and flew through the air. Very quickly, he left the borders of the kingdom of Jessun and traveled thousands of kilometers to enter the Blue Wind Kingdom. In the Blue Wind Kingdom, outside the 3rd-ranked city of Wake City, mercenaries and merchants dressed in all sorts of clothing entered and exited the city. About 20 kilometers outside of Wake City, one could vaguely see a large mountain range. That was the magical Beast Mountain Range. During this period of time, a rumor had been circulating in Wake City. It was that deep within the magical Beast Mountain Range, there was a mysterious team. No one knew where this mysterious team came from or what their identities were. They only knew that every member of this mysterious team was extremely powerful. They spent most of their time in the depths of the magical Beast Mountain Range, hunting high-level magical beasts. They had never left the mountain range and rarely even set foot in the outer regions of the magical Beast Mountain range. Recently, in the middle of the night, there would often be earth-shattering roars of magical beasts coming from the depths of the mountain range, echoing throughout the entire Wake City. Moreover, this kind of thing had happened quite a few times. Some of the Saint Masters living in Wake City were even able to determine that this was the roar of a 5th-rank magical beast.